And spin. We are live. What's up, YouTube? Sorry about the delay. We had some technical difficulties, but we're here. The young guns. We're giving you what we give you 3 days a week. Welcome to the show. If you're new here, let's get it. Today, we're talking Army Navy. Because why? For one, it's considered to a lot of people to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, non-fan base rivalry in the country. Meaning, like, for instance, Austin's a Louisville fan, so he probably thinks Louisville, Kentucky is the biggest rivalry. I'm Buckeye. I consider Michigan, Ohio State to be the biggest. No. This game is nothing like any of those. This game is about the country. This game brings all the eyeballs in. That being said, interesting fact that this game will be the last one played between Lincoln Financial Field and Philly. From now on, it will be on a different neutral site every year, at least until 2027. So, and yes, you did see the little text at the bottom, and it's a little spice of our test drive when we get this over with, or get done, I should say. So, Army Navy, as you can see on the left, that's the last 10 results from the game. It seems a little lopsided with Navy winning 6 of the last 10. Couple cool designs I decided to throw in there. Now, let's talk about the history here. The Black Knights, or the cadets, and the midshipmen each represent their service's oldest officer commissioning sources. The game has come to embody the spirit and inter-service rivalry of the U.S. Armed Forces. The game marks the end of the college football regular season and the third and final game of the season's Commander-in-Chief's Trophy series, which also includes Air Force Falcons of the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado. The Army-Navy game is one of the most traditional and enduring rivalries in college football. It's been frequently attended by sitting U.S. presidents. The game's been nationally televised each year since 1945 on either ABC, CBS, or NBC. CBS has televised the game since 1996 and has the rights to the broadcast through 2028. ESPN's College Game Day has televised from the game site on a yearly basis since 2014 as well. Instant Replay made its American debut in the 1963 Army-Navy game. Since 2009, the game's been held on the second Saturday of December and following the FBS Conference Championship weekend. The game's been held in multiple locations, but outside of the 1926 game in Chicago and 1983 game in Pasadena, it's been played in the Northeast megalopolis, most frequently in Philadelphia, followed by the New York area and the Baltimore, Washington area. Through last year's meeting in 2021, Navy leads the series 62 to 53 to 7 ties. Army and Navy first met on the field November 29th, 1890, and have met annually since 1930. The game has been held at several locations throughout its history, as stated above, but has the most frequently been played in Philly, roughly equidistant from the two academies. Historically played on Saturday after Thanksgiving, a date in which most of the major college football teams end their regular season. The game is now played on the second Saturday in December. For much of the first two-thirds of the 20th century, both Army and Navy were often national powers, and the game occasionally had national championship implications. However, since 1963, only 1996, 2010, 2016, and 2017 games have seen both teams enter with winning records. Nonetheless, the game is considered a college football institution. It has aired nationally on the radio since 1930 and nationally televised on a broadcast network every year since 1945. The game is the last of the, since 1901, there have been presidents of the United States to attend the Army-Navy game. The first was Teddy Roosevelt, who attended the game in 1901 and 1905. Harry Truman attended all but one edition during his 8 years in office from 45 to 52, missing the 51 game due to vacation. George W. Bush and Donald Trump each showed up 3 times, Bush in 01, 04, 08, Trump in 18, 19, and 20. Trump also attended a game as president-elect in 2016, and to my knowledge, he's the only one to have done that. JFK showed up twice in 61 and 62.
Broadcasters.
Woodrow Wilson in 1913, Calvin Coolidge in 1924, Gerald Ford in 1974, Bill Clinton in 1996, and Obama in 2011 each attended the game only once. Uh-oh. Army-Navy, need to know. This game is about more than just pride, first and foremost. Bragging rights mean a lot in this game. Go Army, beat Navy, or go Navy, beat Army will be shouted from the rooftops for 365 days, depending on who takes the dub in Philly. It just means more than that this year, though, as 2022 has been down years for both teams, and walking away with a dub in this game is a good way to start to build in the offseason, having momentum going into 2023. Tyler's last ride. Army quarterback Tahir Tyler will suit up in the game one more time as he looks to lead the Black Knights back to glory on their biggest stage. He is West Point's leading rusher and has mastered the art of making correct decisions in the zone read game. We have seen senior signal callers pour their hearts out in this game to make some of the memorable moments over the years. Navy's dynamic attack. The triple option offense always needs multiple running backs to do the dirty work, and the midshipmen have been led by 2 sophomores who have emerged as monsters. Daba Fofana has been the short yardage back who does the dirty work and has been a touchdown machine this season. Mikael Haywood is the slot back who's likely to be the one to bust out big plays and move the chains on third down. Army practices against the triple option every day. It has a huge challenge on its hands to slow down this TRO unit. Army comes into the game at 5-6. So if Army does win the game, they will be 6-6.
But they won't be able to be going to a bowl game because 2 of their wins consist of FCS opponents. So they would be going to a bowl game if they were 6-5 going into the game. So, yeah. That's the weird rules of the NCAA, but it is what it is.
Most of the NCAA rules are weird. The head coach for Army is...
I was about to ask, why is that rule in place again? If you beat 2 FCS schools, but you still win 6 games, why does that stop a team from bowl eligibility?
I have no idea.
Schedule.
Pretty much. The Army head coach, Army is led by Jeff Monken. Their average points per game are 29.4. That's 58th out of 131 schools in the country. They give up 23 points, which is 38th in the country. Their points against total is 253. Points for is 323. Their strength of record is best at 72 out of 131. And the strength of schedule is 102 out of 131. So their strength of record seems to be better than their strength of schedule overall, and I would assume that tends to be because of, as Jackson said, the 2 FCS schools. Navy coming into this game is 4-7. They have no shot at bowl because they're not even near bowl eligibility. They're 4-4 in the American. They are led by head coach Ken Niumatalolo. Their points per game, and sorry, Ken, or any Navy fans, if I severely butchered that, that's my best attempt. Their points per game is 22.4. That's best for 104th in the country out of 131 teams. It amazes me that their points per game are 7-point difference, and yet Army's 58th and Navy's 104th. Navy's opponent points per game that they give up is 24.7 for 54th. Again, it's only 1.7 points, and I'm still shocked at the difference between where they lay in the country. Total points against, Navy has given up 272 points coming into this game and have scored points for 246 points. Navy's strength of record is 79th, and their strength of schedule is 60th. Now, let's talk about some important players to watch for this game. Again, I want to apologize to anyone that's a fan of either team, diehard fan of either team, if I butcher the names. Quarterback for Navy is an important player in this game. Tai Lavatte, number 1. In 2022, he's played in 8 games this season. Rushing the ball, he's had 115 carries for 309 yards and 5 touchdowns. Passing the ball, he is 42 of 91 for 785 yards with 5 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. That's average. With him having so few touchdowns, you'd want to see the interception number be lower, but I mean, it doesn't matter because Navy doesn't pass the ball too much.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up. Like when you got an offense like Navy does, it's kind of hard to throw touchdown passes.
Yeah, because they just run the ball down your throat, so to speak. Another one for Navy is Daba Fofana, running back number 45, with that Ezekiel Elliott look where his stomach is showing. He's played in 11 games this season. Rushing, he has 175 carries for 749 yards and 6 touchdowns. Daba is a bruiser back, but he's got speed. One of the 3 biggest threats in the run game for Navy. This kid can get the tough yards, but also leave you in the dust. So you need to wrap him up, Army, if you're looking to shut him down. The last one for Navy, in my opinion, is the slot back / running back, Mikael Haywood, number 24. He's also played in 11 games. On the year, he has 69 carries for 451 yards, so he can be productive in the run game, but he's more productive in the pass game, for he has 7 catches for 112 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, let's talk about the Army players to watch. Tahir Tyler, who I believe will be the starter in this game, number 2. He's played in 10 games this year. He's carried the ball 120 times in the run game, consists of 601 yards for 12 touchdowns. In the pass game, he's 8 of 16 for 301 yards and 2 touchdowns to 1 interception. Now, before I go on, I want to interject that these offenses are basically run the same way. Army doesn't like to pass as well. They prefer the run, but they both have a pass game if they really need it. Another one to watch.
So if you like running the ball,
you're
going to love this game.
Yeah, if you like seeing teams run the ball, you're going to love watching this game. The reason that my 3 players to watch for Army in this game is all 3 quarterbacks is because Army loves to run the 3 quarterback system. So Jamel Jones, number 7, quarterback for Army. He's played in 8 games. In the run game, he's had 72 carries for 326 yards and 7 touchdowns. In the passing game, he's 13 of 38 for 250 yards with 1 touchdown and 1 interception. And the man who seems to have the second most production, in my opinion, Cade Ballard, quarterback, number 18. He's played in 9 games this year. In the run game, he's got 40 carries for 173 yards and 1 touchdown. But in the pass game, he's 18 of 36 for 335, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. All right, gentlemen. Here we have the final scores. Let's go one at a time. Jeffrey, as you can see, your score is first. You have Navy 17, Army 14. Please break it down for us.
Well, this game right here was, for me, a toss-up, and it's a toss-up every year when trying to pick this game because these two teams, like you said in your outline, both run the exact same offenses. They're essentially the same team, just one's Navy, one's Army, and there's hardly any difference. But I was looking at the stats because, I mean, originally I was thinking about picking Army, not just because they had a better record, but just, thinking about what Army's done. They've had some decent games this year. But looking at the stats, both teams, like I said, are very similar. But Navy this season has been better at run defense than Army has. And even though that's a little bit tough to gauge because these teams have played different type teams, throughout the season that are not like the way they play. They've played some spread offenses that might like to pass more. But throughout the season, Navy's been better in the run defense than Army has. Army has 193 yards given up on the run every game, and Navy's only given up 85 yards. So for me, that's going to help out Navy in this game because both teams run the ball. And that kind of swung me over to Navy because I'm like, hey, if they can stop the run better than Army can, they're probably going to win this game. Navy's pass defense stinks, but Army doesn't pass that much. So if Army can try to pass the ball in this game because Navy's passing defense is not that great, then you never know. Maybe Army can win this game. But again, Navy's run defense for me was the difference, and that's why I picked Navy to beat Army 17-14. This game could really go either way because it's really tough to pick. But Navy's also been more dominant in this series lately. And, I mean, that's not a factor really in picking this game because every year's different. But I just feel Navy's going to get it done 17-14 over Army.
All right. Those are some good points. Jackson, you're next in line. You have Army 21, Navy 17. So
shootout.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jackson. Go ahead and break it down for us.
Army is sixth in passing defense. That will help them. I mean, nobody's going to be passing that much, but I guarantee you when it does come to any passing game whatsoever, which there's probably going to be like 5 passing plays in this game. And let's see, Army has a real good rushing game, which they're second in the nation. And I think that's really going to help them against Navy. And, even though they're not playing for a bowl game, they're playing for pride at this point, which is why I went with Army on this one. It was really just a toss-up between the two because, two of them have been not so hot this year, and they lost the Commanders and Chiefs trophy to Air Force. But I went with Army.
I will say
Jackson?
real quick, off of your point real quick about how Army, why do they not make a bowl game? I think this is – I maybe don't agree with the NCAA ruling, but you got to play better teams. If you have 2 games that are against FCS teams, I don't blame them for not, picking them to make a bowl game even if they win this game because they would only be 4-6 over teams that are not – that are FBS, that are not FCS. So that's, to me, why they would do that. And that's probably one of the rulings that maybe I agree with the NCAA a little bit more than others. I don't love it, but I can see why, because you have to beat good teams to make bowl games. You just do.
So my question for you, Jackson, is why so many points? Because 21-17 seems like a pretty big score for this game. I would like you to explain your reasoning on that one.
A real good running game, and they know how each other works. It's going to be a little high scoring in the second half. That's what I think, really. Then you're gonna see like Army have like a little game-winning touchdown. So it was really just
That's
a
fair.
Austin, I guess you're next.
Well, before Austin goes, real quick, Will went with Navy 13, Army 9. And if you guys want to check that out, I would assume that he breaks it down over in our video. Well, not our video, his video with Tide Guy when they were talking about the game. So if you want a further breakdown on that, I would suggest going over to watch that later when it premieres. Now, Austin said Army's going to win 17 to Navy 7. So, Austin, the floor is yours.
Yes, this was a toss-up for me, but I took Army because I feel as if Army can run the ball better than Navy, in my opinion. And I feel they're just going to drain the clock. They're going to have long, sustained drives. And I feel that Navy's going to make a mistake and Army's going to capitalize off of it. And that's the hint to 17. Probably get a field goal out of it. And I just feel Army will run the ball better and just milk the clock away, and Navy won't see the ball much. And I think that's been Army's key to success is just running the ball. As you saw with those stats, they don't throw much. Navy, they do throw a little bit more, but I expect a lot of the triple options, the read options from both sides. I expect this to be a low-scoring game, but I'm picking Army 17-7. It could go either way. It could be Navy who runs the ball down Army's throat. I just feel it's going to be the other way. It's going to be Army's night, and they're going to win it 17-7. Low scoring. They get it done, get a turnover, and win by 10.
All right, I guess it's me. So for this game, I don't know about any of you guys, but I have rooting lines for this because I have a family member who was in the military and was in the Army. But the funny thing is, yes, I picked Navy 17-16 over Army because of Navy's pure dominance most of the time in this game. In my opinion, Navy just has Army's number a lot. They seem to be able to run the ball better. If they get forced into passing situations, they seem to be able to pass the ball better than Army. Plus, I don't know about you guys, but the uniforms usually are really freaking awesome. Like when I first started watching this game, that's what drew me in was holy cow, the amazing uniforms, which I don't know if anyone knew, but the thumbnail that I have for this show is their uniforms for this game.
Mm-hmm.
Which is freaking cool.
I know. I love that Navy helmet. It's got NASA on one side, astronaut on the other. Oh, that's so cool. But yes, I have family links in the Army, but I tend to lean Navy in this. I have absolute, as I'm sure you guys do, I have absolute and complete respect for both teams because of their branches. Thank you to all the players in this game for your service, because we know for the ones graduating, you're about to go do a tour in the military. So good luck. Thank you for everything. Thank you for the entertainment, for the game. Just overall, thank you. Now, with that being said, the chat has been drowned with the link. I see we maybe have 4 people in here. Go ahead and click the link, guys. At this point, we will talk about anything. Otherwise, I mean, we can talk about something else if you want. Well, mostly want to leave the conversation to college football if you call in. No, we do not want to talk about mathematical numbers and why this team should have won the national championship at this time.
Back in the 80s.
No, I got a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Who's our pick for Heisman? And where do we have him finishing in order?
I made
That's a
a
good
video on my
conversation.
channel with that, so you guys can go check it out. But I mean, do you guys want me to give away my picks on that?
Sure.
Not really, because I mean, I thought we were doing a Heisman live stream, but I mean,
Yeah, I made a video on it too. But yeah, I was gonna, talk about it when we do our Heisman thing. I mean, if we do that.
I guess it kind of gives away the surprise though. But do we all have the 4 that are going at least? Is there any outliers with anybody?
Well, let's see.
Well, they have the 4 that are already picked. So
That's what I mean. Like, are those 4 everybody's 4, or do we? Because like we all know who's going to win.
oh yeah,
So,
it's
so
obvious.
who we would send? Who we would send is not
I know, Buck,
really.
you may not like this. But Blake Corum, I feel he deserves a little more respect. I know
Well,
he got hurt, but I
if-
feel
that's
he,
the
he
thing.
deserves a
There's
little
your
more
answer.
respect.
If you guys watched my video, I made a video on this a few days ago. I said in the video, every single person that didn't make it on the outside, Bryce Young, Hendon Hooker, Blake Corum, you miss games. It's not your fault. You got hurt, but you miss games. That hurts you from padding your stats, man. You miss time. That's why. And Drake May collapsed at the end of the season. Bijan Robinson's tough for a running back to make it anyway. Texas wasn't good enough. His stats, to me, weren't good enough anyway. I mean, they're really, it is what it is. The 4 are there.
Do you think Stetson Bennett should be there?
No,
No.
but again, it's only because Georgia's the number 1 team, and they wanted to put a guy from Georgia there. No one else had the stats to do it, so they put him there. They would have put Blake Corum or Bryce Young or Hendon Hooker if they had played all season, but they didn't, so they just put Stetson Bennett in there. He's not going to win it. He's going to be 4th. It's clear. I mean, literally,
Do you think they
I
would
don't know. He may have enough.
put him in
votes.
second?
He may have enough votes to finish 3rd. There's no way in the world he's going to finish 2nd.
you don't think Stetson Bennett's going to be 4th? Who's he going to be ahead of?
CJ.
The
And
numbers
maybe
aren't there.
Duggan?
The numbers aren't there. CJ Stroud's thrown 37 touchdown passes this year, and Stetson Bennett's thrown 20.
Okay.
Numbers aren't there. I mean, if he finishes 3rd, that's just not right. I mean, he shouldn't finish 3rd. Stats aren't there. I'm not saying Stetson Bennett hasn't played well, but the stats just aren't even comparable.
I just wish that Michael Penix was in the Heisman discussion because, I mean,
That's the only one that's kind of, for me, even argumentative because he didn't miss time and he played well all season and he's leading the passing yards per game, as you've pointed out. So,
Well,
I mean, really, he probably,
Nix is
all
another
of them
one.
should have had a shot.
Oh, Bo Nix is worse than Michael Penix. So Bo Nix is not another one.
yeah.
Really, a lot of people gave him some praise, saying he could be in the Heisman.
He's good, but I'm not saying Bo Nix is bad by any means or any stretch. I'm just saying that the 4 that were sent, Stetson's kind of iffy. Michael Penix are all better than Bo Nix overall. Plus, if you look at the comparison, I mean, Bo Nix it just doesn't add up. Because the thing is, Bo Nix would be in the top 10 of who would go, but he's not. He's closer to 10 than he is 4. Because Caleb Williams, Max Duggan, C.J. Stroud, Stetson Bennett, which I think is how you're saying it'll go, Jeffrey.
Mm-hmm.
Blake Corum, Michael Penix, Bryce Young,
Drake
Bijan
May.
Robinson, Drake May, then maybe Bo Nix. I mean, and I'm not saying like that's how they
I
would
mean,
place all in order. I'm just saying those. My point was he's closer to 10 than he is 4 or 5. So that's where
Mhm.
he's in that group.
mhm. I mean, do you think his year at Oregon, he's done better 1 year in Oregon than he did all his years in Auburn? You think
He's had
being
the
in the
best
Oregon
season he's ever
system?
had.
Yeah. Yeah. He's had the best season he's ever had, as Jeffrey just said, not to steal his thunder. But, I mean, yeah, that's obvious. Besides, Oregon is built differently and better for Bo Nix than Auburn ever really was. I mean, literally, it's a known fact that the only reason Bo Nix went to Auburn is because he grew up a fan of Auburn.
And he had a lot of family members that went to Auburn. So
He was. The way that the broadcast consistently talked about it at his time at Auburn. It was almost like you're being forced to be at Auburn. Like it's not your choice specifically. It may have been one of your schools of choice, but it's not like, oh, I want to go to Auburn. No, it's like the whole family went to Auburn, Bo, so you have to go to Auburn. You are not. It's like a Manning thing all over again.
yeah.
Mhm.
To a lesser extent.
Yeah, because it was like, did he really want to go to Auburn, or did he just do it because, oh, if you don't go there, we're just not going to pay your scholarship money. We're not going to pay your tuition or any of that.
Well, and the thing too is, I know a lot of people when Oregon played Georgia the very first game of the year, and I know Jeffrey, it drives you crazy when big teams play games like that at the beginning of the year. But like a lot of people were saying that first game, oh, Bo Nix has gone back to Auburn Bo Nix already, and we're just one game in. Well, let me ask you guys, if that was any other team, if Bo Nix would have been with any other team, would he have stood a chance against Georgia? Let's be real. Like Georgia would have destroyed anybody that they put on that field. Like I think you can't judge someone off their first game. Agree or no?
But it's not his first game. It's his first game there, but again,
It's more like the way it
Yes,
should be
his first game
worded
to
is
Oregon.
it's the first game of the season.
He might.
Yeah.
It's tough for teams in
Yes,
these big
thank you.
games in the
Because
first game
here's
of the
the-
season.
because here's the thing. One, if they would play them now, I would still pick Georgia to win, but I think it would be way closer than it was. Two, you have other schools out there built to just throw a quarterback in there and the system is fine. Like often, like, okay, for example, if Bo Nix would have went to Ohio State and Ohio State would have opened the season with Bo Nix at quarterback instead of CJ Stroud, and they played Georgia the first game, Georgia probably wins, but it's closer because Ohio State is built to compete with Georgia. You throw them in Michigan.
I got you.
You throw them at Michigan, it might be the gap might be bigger, but I think that Michigan is now also built to be able to compete with Georgia because it's been a boat race since the SEC started this BS of, oh, come beat us. You got to go through us if you want to win the national title. It runs through the SEC. No offense, Jackson.
None taken.
Well, because Georgia has looked like I know Georgia in many people's eyes is the best team until proven otherwise until they get beat. But Jeffrey has said it multiple times. I'm sure Jackson and Buckeye Mike have said it. Georgia does look beatable at times. The Missouri game, like if Missouri doesn't turn that ball over, who knows? Maybe Georgia's has a little doubt on their resume.
That's because they did not play that good in that game. That's why when you hear me talk about games where you have a team and they're playing a team that's average, are pretty good, but probably not going to beat said team, I always say that it depends on how that team plays. Whenever like Georgia against LSU, I said it depends on how Georgia plays. If Georgia plays bad, like they did against Missouri, they could lose to LSU. That's why when people say there is no way that Georgia's going to lose to LSU, I always disagree with that because it depends on how they play. Georgia's only beatable if they beat themselves. They did that against Missouri. They almost lost the game, but look what they did against Oregon. Look what they did against other teams where they just blew the doors off, like South Carolina. So Georgia has the ability to just destroy any team they play almost, except a few top teams, but it depends on if they show up to play at an elite high level.
Well, like,
because sometimes they don't.
well, Jeffrey, like the Kentucky game, you look at the final score and it says 16-6, and people, say, oh, Kentucky had a chance. Well, as you say, Jeffrey, Georgia was kind of like mumbling through it. As you said, they didn't have their heart in it, so to speak.
Alabama
that's
beat
to your
Cincinnati. Alabama beat Cincinnati in the playoff, but Alabama could have beaten Cincinnati by more than that. They just kind of cruised through the game to get ready for the next one. I mean, that's essentially what it was.
Well, and it happens with every team, does it not? Because Ohio State this year, they only beat Northwestern 21-7. They probably should have beaten them 52-7, but they muddled through and thought, Northwestern, that they're not good. We'll just walk through. And Northwestern said, not so fast. We're going to make this a game out of it. And yes, it was snowing in the weather, but still, Ohio State has been vulnerable.
You watched the game, right?
I think they were only vulnerable against Michigan. That's why they lost.
No, but Northwestern held their own. Ohio State averages, over 32 points a game?
Was that because Northwestern played good defense, or was it because Ohio State just could not do anything on offense, partially due to the weather and everything? Because I don't think Northwestern is really capable of stopping Ohio State's offense in normal situations.
Yeah, because if that game is played in regular weather, and I hate talking about this because everything I see on YouTube and social media is Ohio State fans are wimps. They're soft, and Ohio State is soft because they blame the weather on everything.
If they're soft, then they need to move down to Florida and put Florida in Ohio spot, geography-wise. Put Ohio down in the Sunshine State.
Because if you play that game on a clear day, Northwestern gets boat raced easily.
Because, I mean, you think about it, Indiana's better than Northwestern, and Ohio State blew out Indiana. So, okay, the Indiana is a better team than Northwestern. But
well, you can make that argument for anybody, though, weather's a factor. You can make an argument for anybody on that.
No, you can't.
I believe you can, because
when does it ever rain in Alabama? When does it ever snow in Alabama?
The northern part of the state maybe gets it every now and then.
Ryan Day just wouldn't admit they couldn't pass the ball that day. What do you think of that,
guys?
Mike?
You guys can call in if you guys want to, but
there's a link in the description if y'all want to call in and talk to us.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but what do you think about that, Mike, to people coming through on that?
Come on in, Troy, yes.
I mean, it's obvious. That's what happened. I mean, couldn't throw the ball. The offense, as Jeffrey has pointed out over and over with his silly little Florida State swipe, they couldn't throw the ball. They're a passing team. If you can't throw the ball, you're not going to move the offense. Yes, they can run the ball, but they're pass-first offense.
I mean, it's literally Indiana. I mean, again, no one cares about Indiana on here, but I mean,
yeah, stop talking about Indiana.
They played Idaho, right? They played Idaho. In the first half, it was raining, and Indiana is a passing team with Connor Bazelak at the time at quarterback. They were down 10-0 at half. The rain cleared, and they ended up winning 35-22 because the passing game was able to do stuff in the second half. When they played Michigan State and it was snowing a little bit, up in East Lansing, Indiana won the game because IU went with Dexter Williams, who unfortunately for him hurt his leg really badly in the Purdue game, which is why they didn't win. But that's why they won and beat Michigan State, because he was a running quarterback, and in bad weather, running the ball is better than passing the ball.
But weather is a factor for every team. It's not just Ohio State is the point I'm making. Yes, I get it. Ohio State does get the weather a lot more than other teams. But the weather affects everybody.
But what I'm saying is, how does it affect everybody? Because Florida almost never plays in nothing but sunshine or darkness from a night game. Most of your southern schools never do. Arizona State, Arizona, never do. How often does it rain in California? Almost never. Yes, majority of the northern schools are going to be the ones that do play in the weather. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State even. My point is, the whole country, unless you get a fluky game where it just happens to rain that one day where you're at, the whole country does not experience weather problems. And that's my point. I'm not using it as an excuse. I'm telling you, and not you specifically, Austin, I'm telling you, you know who I'm talking to. You know who you are. I'm telling you that weather is a factor. It's not an excuse. So stop saying it's an excuse.
Face zooming in, man. That's awesome.
Basically, Austin, what he's trying to say is, if I can say it in a little bit calmer way with my face further away from the screen, is that basically what he's saying is that weather, it might be a factor for everybody, but weather is worse up north usually. It can happen in the South. It can happen in the South.
Troy says, he says Austin does have a point. It should affect the teams evenly in bad weather.
Well, that's why it did. That's why it was a low-scoring game. It was 21-7. Did Northwestern do anything? It'd be different if they had a 135-21. They didn't do anything either.
Northwestern can run the ball. Ohio State can run the ball. Again, Ohio State's main way to run the offense is not through the run game.
That's why I just said hummus here. They get trench rain in the South. Yes, it happens. Weather can be a factor down south. That's why Austin's point is legitimate, but it's usually worse up north with the snow. So
Mr. DeWeedy says Oregon State versus Washington had an atmospheric.
Yeah, it was raining really hard. Like, it made it hard to kick field goals because Washington, they ended up winning that game, but they had to get the ball where they wanted it to be, and just so the kicker can actually hold it. And because when you kick it, that ball's going to be wet, and you just got to hope that you don't slip or nothing.
My whole point to this is, again, those two teams are in the northern part of the United States. I said all northern teams. But yes, even southern teams can experience weather problems. But my point is, you're more likely and more often to experience weather problems in the north than you are in the south. My whole point was to back up Austin's point. Again, yes, it can happen to everybody. Stop saying it's an excuse. It's a factor, not an excuse.
It's the same thing when someone has a backup. It's the same thing when someone has a backup quarterback. Yeah, that's funny. It's the same thing when someone has a backup quarterback and they play in the game for, like, Alabama. It was close against A&M because Jalen Milroe was in. Well, you can say that about tons of teams. When their backup quarterback's in, you're not as good of a team, but certain teams get more of an excuse with the backup quarterback angle than others do.
So let me ask you guys, Ohio State last year, they went to Michigan and it was snowing, rain mixed in. Do you think
Michigan runs the ball better? I'm not saying that. That's why they were able to play better than Ohio State.
Ooh, that's a very good question, Mr. Dweedy. Still kind of figuring that one out at the moment.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't really want to answer that. Because
We got a bunch of bowl preview shows.
yeah,
coming
I've
up.
only looked at like 2 bowl games.
The only thing I will say is one, Golden Blue Dude can definitely answer your question. He's already done a preview on the SEC. I think the SEC. I'm not gonna say who will win which game and which games they'll win. The SEC most likely, the way it looks, is gonna finish either right under 500 or right above it, because you're including the playoff game with Georgia, and if Georgia wins that game, you're including the national championship.
Yeah.
Well, he did, but it was like chump change. It was chump yardage.
I'm not. My thing is like when I'm saying I'm kind of like halfway between Austin and Buckeye Mike with what I'm talking about with weather. Like weather affects the South, weather affects the North. The snow's worse than rain most of the time, usually, unless the rain's just like a torrential downpour. That could be worse depending on the situation. But in a lot of games, depending on the style of a team, it affects certain teams more with certain circumstances.
That's cool.
That's fair.
I'm curious about the 2 losses, though.
Yeah, why don't you call in and you can give us your opinion about why you think the Pack is going to go 5-2.
This is a call show
we
for
want
all
to
the
hear
people
from you
in chat,
guys.
man.
We would love to hear from you.
Hey, we don't care what you're a fan of. If you're an Alabama fan, Kansas State, Ohio State, Indiana, Louisville,
We'll even
for
do
heaven's
UMass.
sakes, me and Jeffrey are here talking.
Connecticut, Tulane. We'd love to hear your point of view, man. Come on in.
USC, come talk to us. And maybe even tell Buckeye Mike, if you're a Michigan fan, how Michigan's going to win it all this year.
Or tell us why you think TCU will win, or why Georgia will repeat, or tell us why there will be an Ohio State-Michigan rematch.
Or even why there should have been a 4-team SEC playoff.
If you're in
we'd
here.
love to hear from you. That's why we're doing a call-in show.
Exactly.
But while we wait, I have a question for y'all. What do y'all think is going to be the sleeper bowl game? The sleeper bowl game, a bowl game that no one's really going to watch, but it'll turn out better than expected.
Let's see.
You don't have to tell me who wins.
I gotta pull up the bowl games again. I mean, there's so many of them.
I got one. USC Tulane. I think that'll be a really good game.
I
think a lot of people just think USC's going to run them over. I think USC's going to have to pack a lunch that day. I think that'll be a really, really good game. That's one of my sleeper bowl picks.
USC's defense is terrible, man. Tulane's going to show them what for. At least that's what I think right now. A game that no one's really talking about. Let's see. No one. Let's see.
Florida, Oregon State. How do we feel on that one? Could that one be a really interesting game?
The Vegas Bowl. I love it.
Nope. Oregon State.
You don't think that's going to be a good one, Buckeye Mike, a sleeper?
Oregon State's going to run away with that one.
Yeah, I think Anthony Richardson bailed on the bowl game.
Yep. He entered the transfer portal or declared. I forget which one.
He declared for draft, I believe.
Yeah. He declared he's not playing the bowl game. Florida has like half of their roster that's going to play. Like literally, they're falling apart at the seams.
Nobody is going to get you, Richardson.
Oregon, North Carolina could be good.
Oh, that's going to be a good one.
That's going to be a shootout, I think.
Which one?
Oregon, North Carolina.
Here's a good one, and it involves your team, Austin. The Fenway Bowl. Think about it. The rivalry of Louisville Cincinnati coming back. Scott Satterfield leaving Louisville for Cincinnati.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Oh,
Like,
I
y'all
like-
don't want to miss
I
that.
like-
My thoughts on that.
I like
Because
Troy
we will be doing a
UTSA.
coaching carousal stream.
oh,
Troy UTSA is going to be a good one for sure. More than likely, that's going to be a good one.
oh yeah, Troy, man.
Here's the thing. Kentucky, Iowa. Does that have a chance to be a sleeper good one?
Yeah,
Or two.
If you don't
Now it
like
does.
points, if you don't like points, man,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a fantastic game. It's gonna be like Army Navy.
well, like Kentucky is losing their star QB and their star running back to the draft. So, but Iowa can't really score points. Not gonna point any fingers. Oh, I'm pointing fingers. Who am I kidding? I'm gonna point fingers at Brian Ferretz, man.
I just want everybody to answer this question if you can. I'm not calling them out because I'm not this way. I'm not gonna go to the extreme of Buckeye Mike and literally call a quarterback doo-doo like he did. But I'm just gonna say, why is everybody think Will Levis should be drafted so high? Besides all the quirkiness, I don't understand. He is a decent quarterback that should be drafted in like the 5th to 7th round. I don't understand why he's a top 15 draft pick in a lot of people's mind. Maybe I'm completely wrong and he goes to the NFL and he's one of the best quarterbacks of all time. And if he is, then kudos to Will Levis. But at this point in his career, because players can improve. Tom Brady got drafted at 6th round, 199, and look what he's done. So a player could not even be drafted and end up being great. So, I mean, what I'm saying is from what he's done in his career, other quarterbacks that you can compare him to, why is he a high draft pick right now?
I have no idea. I think 5th round is a little low.
Okay.
I agree with to the 7th round. I think it's anywhere from 4th to 7th because,
Okay.
I mean, I know we want to talk more in depth about this when we get closer to draft time, but to me,
Mhm.
I just feel like overall this class is just, I don't know, average. I forget who all's in the QB class this coming year, but I don't think anybody really stands out. I mean,
No
yeah,
one
you're,
stood out last year either. That's why Kenny Pickett was taken so late, and then nobody else for a long time. I'm not. It's just again, I don't want to call out any quarterback. I think Will Levis is solid. I just don't understand. Like I've never, you
'Cause,
know,
like,
like
I
a lot of
mean-
people had the Daniel Jones thing when he was drafted 6th, and all that, and he, shouldn't have been drafted that high. Frankly, I mean, he's done pretty well. Maybe better than a lot of people thought. Maybe
Well, he's doing good this year.
it's all, it is what it is. But you got your high draft picks are supposed to be the best players in college football. And I can name, at tons of positions, way better players than Will Levis right now. Doesn't mean that he can't improve and be fantastic in the NFL. I hope he does, but I don't understand it. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Bryce Young is the best quarterback in the 2023 NFL draft.
Yes.
None of
I don't know because in my opinion, I mean,
That's
obviously
hard to argue.
your top 2 are Bryce and CJ without a doubt. Honestly, though, if it were up to me, NFL, if you're listening, do not draft CJ Stroud at all. Don't even sign him as an undrafted free agent. CJ, I hope you got a degree because you need to go into whatever field you got your degree in. Stop playing football. Unless something changes with the playoff and the national championship, if we pull off a miracle against Georgia, just quit football. Quit. Just
I don't
give
think
up.
that has anything to do with CJ Stroud, quote unquote, quitting football. That's funny. He's not that bad. The problem with CJ Stroud that I have, and I've said this to you before, I don't see the guy giving it 110%. I've never seen a play where I said, CJ Stroud, you were putting your, I don't want to say life on the line because no one wants to die playing football, but you know what I'm saying, where you're giving it your all. You want to win this game and you're going to give it 110% no matter what, even if I'm bleeding and all that kind of stuff. But my problem is it's the other thing I don't like. Hummus Hero, see that as an excellent pro. Here's my thing. I'm just real quick, and then everybody else can agree or disagree or talk about something else. But this is my opinion on CJ Stroud. I don't like when quarterbacks are hyped up further than they should be because of size. I don't like it. And the only reason why I do not like it is because just because you're 6'4", 6'5" doesn't mean you're better than a guy that's 6 foot 6'1". That's just not true. And it will never be true. I don't understand why people think it is, but it's not, because a lot of tall quarterbacks have been horrible in the NFL. And again, not saying CJ Stroud's going to be horrible. I think he could be fantastic in the NFL, but that size should not matter on your height, on whether you're going to be more draftable or a better quarterback than this guy.
Yeah, and it all depends on what situation you go to as well. Because look at Mac Jones. He went to the Patriots. That's a great situation for a young QB to be in. Bill Belichick and the Patriots, where they just run the ball, set up the play action. Like, it's a perfect situation. Trevor Lawrence going to Jacksonville.
I'm not saying
that was awful.
You are right. I agree about what you're saying. Bryce Dam's traveling over the line when he's blitzed has an impact. But the thing is that CJ Stroud sits in the pocket and he throws the ball. He doesn't run ever because he doesn't choose to. And that's fine. I'm not saying that's why he's not going to be good. I'm just saying that when you use size as the only reason, in this case, that CJ Stroud should be drafted as high as he is or drafted over Bryce Young, to me, that's just not right. You should draft CJ Stroud because you think he's better than Bryce Young, not because of the fact that he's taller than Bryce Young. That's not a reason to me. Because, again, how many tall quarterbacks have bombed? I'm not saying CJ Stroud will. He could be fantastic. But look at what has happened in the NFL with a lot of guys 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", and we know who was 6'7".
Well,
they
Jeffrey, I'm glad you brought that up. Justin Herbert, he was another one a lot of people questioned because of what he was in Oregon in that Mario Cristobal coaching era. And look at Justin Herbert now. He's arguably a top 10 quarterback, if not already there in top 10. So
I'm questioning Herbert's draftability in 2020. And I regret doing that.
Thomas Hero points out, as a college quarterback, running is really important, but in the NFL, it's not as important. I mean, Tom Brady is a statue, LOL. Hey, but look at Brady, though. He's always had a great offensive line.
That's
so
the thing.
He really hasn't had to
NFL
run.
Is because you have offensive linemen that are fantastic, and if you can throw the ball. So if you're Tom Brady and you're 45 years old and you haven't lost your touch, and you can still throw the ball over the field, then you don't have to run. A lot of the time, the reason why quarterbacks run is because either they're just really good at it or it's because their offensive line stinks and they have to. That's essentially the only two reasons why a lot of quarterbacks run, because they're capable of doing it and the offensive line on the team that they play for is bad. And I never said that running was a key. I said size shouldn't be the difference. I didn't say that running was the key. I just don't think that saying this guy's more draftable than this guy because he's 3 inches taller. I don't think it matters that much.
Well, Jeffrey, to that, Jeffrey, look at Drew Brees. He's not a very tall guy, and he's like number 2 in all-time passing yards and touchdowns. Brady, he's not a very big guy. Peyton Manning. So, to your point, I agree. You don't have to be a very big guy to make it in the NFL.
Well, like Tanner McKee.
Like, look at Kyler Murray.
Example. Tanner McKee is 6'6" at Stanford, and he's great. Again, he could go pro and be good. He could be great, but Stanford's offensive line's bad, and he's a statue. So if he goes to an NFL team that has a great offensive line, he could be good in the NFL. But Tanner McKee's stats are bad, and he's being listed as a potentially fourth or fifth round draft pick. And yeah, I was going to point out that Brady and Manning were tall, but I just didn't say anything because I didn't want to correct Austin there. But again, some of these quarterbacks are only getting a lot of height because of their height, and I don't like that. To me, I just think that you should get recognition for what you do and not because you're tall. Just because you're tall. It should be for what you do. If people think CJ Stroud's better than Bryce Young, I'm cool with it if you can give me reasons other than that he's 6'4" and Bryce Young's 6 foot.
How many wins does Leon get next year? I think he could get 6 for right now. Because,
that's exactly what I mean. I agree with you 100%, Hummus Hero. You are right. I'm just saying that when people only base it on that, there are people that do. I don't like it. You are right, Hummus Hero, about size. A lot of quarterbacks that are tall, it's better. But it shouldn't be the reason. I agree with you 100%.
To his point, I know we'll get to it when we do our coaching live stream, but do you think Deion has a chance to do – do you think Deion has a chance to do what Lincoln Riley did at USC? When USC was 4-8 before he got there, and now USC's 11-2 and in a New Year's Six bowl. Do you think
Absolutely
he can?
Not right away.
You don't
not right away because USC was built better than Colorado is built. It's two totally different programs. It's two totally different ways that people just.
So you don't think Deion can do what Lincoln Riley?
Now I will say this: Lincoln Riley is not as good of a coach as people make him out to be. And I'm sort of saying that for content, but I do mean it because, guys, this is a call-in show. Come on, call in.
Yeah, but to your point, Buck, I was going to – to your point, Buck, I was going to say the exact same thing. There's no way that he can turn it around this quick. USC already had talent on the team, already, and then Lincoln Riley brought in everybody under the sun to go there. Literally,
did a pretty good job turning around Jackson State. Like, good Lord, he got 5-star recruits to flip. He got like one 5-star recruit to flip from Florida State to Jackson
Travis
State.
Hunter, I remember that, and a lot of coaches, including Nick Saban, were a little mad about that because it's like, how do you get a 5-star to Jackson State? My point is that I think Deion can turn it around because of his name alone and the fact that a lot of players are going to want to play for him, and I think he's going to do well there. But it's going to be very tough to turn it around as quickly as USC did, like Buckeye Mike said.
Yeah.
Absolutely, James Scott. Lincoln Riley is an excellent offensive mind. The guy can tell you anything on offense, and you can just go execute it. His defense has never been there. You look at his teams at Oklahoma, they were off on defense. The only time I can remember Oklahoma had a decent defense was 2017, and that was the year Baker won Heisman, and that defense still wasn't very good. So Lincoln Riley, if he's an excellent offensive mind, as you're saying, but if you're hiring him to prep up your defense, it won't be so much.
The key to
here's the thing.
I'll say sorry, Buck. I might go ahead.
Here's the thing. Lincoln Riley may be a great, amazing offensive coach. The one thing he needs to do that for whatever reason he will not do, he drug him with him from Oklahoma to USC. Get rid of Alex Grinch. You need a better defensive coordinator. Alex Grinch sucks.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Y'all can – I don't know if y'all agree with me when I say this, but Caleb Williams saved USC in a lot of games this year.
But my point that I was trying to make, I didn't know Buckeye was about to say something, but I was trying to say about Lincoln Riley. Everybody's talking about whether the guy's a legitimate coach or not. Anybody can be a good coach when you've got some of the best talent on the field. Okay? He did not start out with what USC had at 4-8 and try to build. He just come here, transfers, come here, 20 of you, 25 of you, come over and play. Some of the best, Jordan Addison, let's take you from Pitt. Come on, Caleb Williams, follow me. Come on, Mario. All these players. I'm not saying
Travis
that
Dye.
he can't coach, but you Travis Dye, you took some of the best players in college football and you mashed it together. I'm not saying that's easy, but you took the best players. Yes, you're a great offensive mind, but what if you didn't have the players? What if your players sucked and they were 4-8 with the players that they had on that 4-8 team, and you tried to go 11-2 with that. You would not have gone 11-2 with that. That's why when your point about Caleb Williams saved him is because he brought Caleb Williams over. He already was coaching the guy, brought him over, brought a lot of talent to USC, and was able to go 11-2. That's the only reason why people thought that they had a chance to make the playoff this year at the beginning of the season, because the amount of players he brought over was just insane.
Because
insane.
To Jeffrey's point, here's the thing.
All coaches benefit from talent. It's just the way it is.
Right. What I was going to say was, to my point, if you get rid of Alex Grinch, you have a competent DC, a guy who knows how to run a defense, not all.
Develop the defense, let me push him in the back.
Let me look at this paper, and this is my formations on defense, and I'm going to tell my guys not to wrap up and run through. I'm just going to tell them push them in the back on 3rd and 19 and give up a touchdown. If you got somebody who's if you have somebody who's competent and knows how to run a defense, you can do what Lincoln Riley did and more. You can win the Pac-12. You can, because they're coming to the Big Ten. You can win the Big Ten right now. In my opinion, USC cannot win the Big Ten. No defense. Fix the defense. You can win the Pac-12. You can make the playoff. You didn't make the playoff because your defense sucks. Your defense got you enough of a lead, and then things started to happen, and the lack of depth on your defense showed because of injuries, and you took your foot off Utah's throat.
He needs to learn how to run the ball because USC was up 17-3 on Utah at that point, and the USC guys have even mentioned this. If he just runs the ball and milks the clock away instead of getting all fancy with it, USC might win that game. But no, they had to be fancy with it and throw the ball around. Like, sometimes it's just nice to run the ball. Like, that's what he did at Oklahoma too. Like, he just never run the ball because he had Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Baker. Like, run the ball, Lincoln. It's not going to hurt.
Yeah, I mean, the hardest thing for USC is going to be and is that you need, like Austin said, you need to be able to run the ball, because what are you going to do when you're made into a one-dimensional team? Make you just throw the ball. I'll tell you what'll happen, and what they'll do. They'll do exactly what they did in the Pac-12 championship. Caleb Williams is not a pocket passer. Caleb Williams is an elusive running quarterback. Couldn't think of the word I wanted to say. He's an elusive running quarterback who knows how to create space and create time outside the pocket. CJ Stroud, if you want to have any future success, watch Caleb Williams tape. Go be Caleb Williams. I'm sick and tired of you being a statue. You're not a statue. You've proven you're not a statue. Quit being a statue. Put your life on the line. As Jeffrey said, I wouldn't even give him credit to say he gives 80%, Jeffrey. He gives 50%.
Yeah, I try to be
nice.
To be a little kind. I don't like trashing people. I
don't either. But
that's why with Will Levis, I was like, I'm not saying anything negative about Will Levis. He could be fantastic, but what that's what I do. I don't want to trash people. It's just, again, anybody that, like you said, Buck, that looks at CJ Stroud and says that he gives it 110% or plays as hard as Bryce Young is fooling yourself. It is clearly not the case. It's just clearly not the case. It doesn't matter if he throws for 350 yards because he's got the top receivers in the country. Jackson Smith and Jigba missed a lot of the season. He's still got great receivers. I mean, heck, if I didn't have a defensive line that was about to kill me, if I was out there, I could probably throw for 350 with those guys in the receiving corps. I mean, it's not rocket science. All CJ Stroud, like Buck has to say, he doesn't have to run the ball like Caleb Williams. He's got to get out of the pocket, extend plays, try to do things instead of just sitting in the pocket and just not doing anything, especially when you're capable of it. And in his freshman year, he did it. He won't even do it anymore. because I'm
here's-
telling you, he's looking for the draft.
Yeah.
That's what he's looking for.
Because here's the thing. The reason Northwestern Ohio State was so close, if you want to not talk about the weather, is because so if you want to talk about that game and not use weather, the reason that game is so low in score is because Northwestern, who usually doesn't have a run game, I think that's where the run defense for Ohio State started to turn around because after that game anyway, because Northwestern, if you look at the tape, Northwestern ran the ball pretty good on us. So they bled the clock. And
That's the only reason Navy beat UCF.
And they caused enough turnovers to keep it low. Nobody scored because CJ couldn't throw on target. He didn't want to leave the pocket until he was forced to. He won that game on his feet. All I'm saying, and maybe I am harsh, all I'm saying is, CJ, use your full potential. We don't see that from you. So, I mean, like I said, Ohio State's run defense was not very good at that point. It still isn't good. It's not great, but it's better than it was even then, even compared to last year. But I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm just of course they do. It's just how I feel. I'm just more blunt than you, I guess.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I try to be nice. I don't want to say super negative things about individuals that are playing football it could get hurt, and it's for our entertainment. It's one of those things where it's like when a player's not good and people trash them, I'm like, hey, you don't know how that person is as a person, as a human being. Could be a great guy that just unfortunately is not very good at football. That's why you gotta your insults maybe not need to be too harsh. Like this player this guy's just a terrible human being, and it's like, yeah, he might be a terrible football player, doesn't mean he's a terrible human being. So that's why I try to not cross the line. But I agree with you, Buckeye Mike, especially because you want Ohio State to succeed. I can definitely understand your frustration because you've got a talented quarterback that is not, like you said, giving it his full potential. It's just it's true. I agree.
Like and you got to be able to take hits at any level. Like if he thinks that
My Max Duggan
that
did
when he
against
gets to the
K-State.
NFL he's going to be, because when CJ Stroud gets to the NFL level, he does, and he gets drafted to the Texans or the Panthers, their offensive line stinks. So he's going to need to be prepared to take some punishment.
Texans are worse than the
this
Panthers on the offensive line.
Yep.
The Panthers' offensive line's bad, but the Texans is awful.
I guess
But that'll probably be where he gets drafted.
Mm-hmm.
I guess to your point, Jeffrey, you're right. I just say it differently than you do. I feel like we say the same things. I just I'm not trying
on everything.
I'm frustrated mostly at CJ because again, as Austin points out, if CJ's projected top 5, unless some crappy team made a trade with a good team or a good team made a trade with a crappy team to get into the top 5, you're going to a crappy team, so you might as well put your life on the line now to help prove yourself. Most people don't nowadays. You might as well put your body on the line to prove yourself to the NFL teams. It's like
it's like one of those things where if you get hurt in college, though, if you tear your ACL or you get hurt real bad, then you're going to drop in the draft, and then you're going to make less money. I mean, that's what that's about. You don't want to say it, but trust me, if you're looking at your phone, and they do, and you're saying, hey, I'm going to be taken in the top 5. If I get hurt, I'm gonna lose value. That's the way it is.
In other words, when you play in college football, the games don't matter to you because you just want to be able to stay upright and have good enough stats to get drafted in like top 5. And that's why you see most of these.
That's why these opt-outs are happening.
The opt-outs are happening.
You never have this until
and-
now. Players are using their heads about themselves versus their team.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that's all this is. Players are opting out because they care more about their future prospects than their team
Look,
in that
here's
game. And
the
I'm not
thing,
saying that's
too.
wrong,
And it's like
it is what it is.
And it's like, I'm not one to give too much credit to like Uncle Lou and people like him, but like he said in one of his recent videos, oh, you're opting out, so you're basically quitting on your team, which, I mean, if you want to be super blunt, is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
You're quitting on your team when there's still games to be played. It's not
Well,
right.
the sad thing too about it is,
Go ahead, Austin. Sorry.
sad thing. The sad thing about it is too, like the New Year's Six bowls. People are opting out. Like the New Year's Six bowls used to mean something. Now, if you don't make the playoffs, guess what? Players are like, I'll just opt out because we're not playing for anything, and that's sad to see. Like the New Year's Six to me still means something. They're
James
still
Scott,
big bowls.
that's why people are already questioning Jackson Smith and Jigba. Okay, that's why people are saying, oh, he's opting out. It could completely be that he can't play. 100%. And if that's the case, if doctors say he can't play, I'm completely cool with that. Jackson Smith and Jigba, you can't play. You're good. But people are questioning it because it's going to happen. James Scott's right. It's going to happen. And it's sad because of the fact, as to your point, Austin, I was about to get to that, is that New Year's Six bowls, even up to like 6 to 8 years ago, everybody basically played. Unless you were hurt, you couldn't play. And now, like these New Year's Six bowl games, as you said, unfortunately have just lost so much value to the point that they're wanting to do a 12-team playoff to boost this back up. And yeah, it's going to make a lot of money, but unfortunately, they have already ruined these games in the first place with the advent of players making money, with the advent of the playoff. The playoff was insanity. When they hype up the playoff from August to when it's played, a lot of these players were like, hey, this doesn't matter anymore. This game, this New Year's Day bowl game doesn't matter because I missed the playoff. That's when it started to occur.
Mhm.
And then when players like Jake Butt, that tight end from Michigan, he got hurt, and then his draft stock went from 2nd to 6th round, and now he's not even in the NFL anymore. Players were like, well, now if I get hurt and I'm not Tua Tagovailoa, where he only went from like 1 to 5 when he got hurt, then you're going to be dropping rounds if you're a tight end or a receiver. So players started thinking that these games are important because of the playoff. They started thinking about making money because if they get hurt, they're going to lose their value. All of this and more was done because of money. The playoff was done because of money. Players opting out is done because of money. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but money ruined all this, and now you're trying to do the playoff with money to fix this. It's not going to fix it. It's just going to make it worse. Because of the fact players like James Scott said are going to start opting out of these playoffs because even though they're making NIL, they don't care. They're going to make more in the NFL. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong because money's important to a person. It helps you live. But it's unfortunate because for our entertainment and our enjoyment of these games that used to be so great, it's
already happening, Troy. Granted, again,
said it.
Yeah, again, JSN opted out. Ohio State's in the playoffs. JSN opted out. Granted, as I've said recently, we don't know exactly what is going on with them. So realistically, we can't judge one way or another. If you have a heart, you can't judge one way or another. If you're a heartless punk, yeah, you're going to judge because you are jealous of someone that can do something that you obviously can't.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I said that I understand why they do it, because I completely do. I don't have a problem with a person looking at money over their team. I understand why. If I was in the same situation, what would I do? Me and sitting right here, I would say, I would play for my team. But if you're looking at $15-20 million, it's tough.
Oh, yeah.
It's tough. I understand why they do it. It just sucks for us because we want to see these games matter. And you lose value when last year Pitt Michigan State play, and instead of having Kenny Pickett and instead of having Kenneth Walker, you have two random guys on the screen. You have two random guys on the screen that you don't even know yet. Yes, you'll eventually know them, but you lose that value when these guys don't play. It stinks for us. It's great for them, because what if Kenny Pickett gets hurt against Michigan State? Do you think he's drafted in round 1? No chance. That's the way this works. It is what it is. Back in the past, players didn't think about it this way. Now they do. It's a new generation.
Yeah.
We are a generation, unfortunately, that is obsessed with dollars. We are obsessed with material things. And unfortunately, that's what these players are doing. Again, not saying it's wrong. They can do it if they want to. And I have no problem with it, because I understand if I was in the same situation, I might do it too.
Yeah.
I understand. It stinks for the viewers. It stinks for college football's enjoyment level at this time of year.
Again, I go back to Uncle Lou's point, the quitting, and he even mentioned, okay, if you're quitting or opting out, give me your scholarship back. Give me your payment for your dorms back. Give me everything back. You have no longer access to the university's facilities or anything. You want to prep for the draft, do it on your own. I don't mean to be harsh like that, but I'm at the point, like, it's not even going to matter. We could make the playoff expand so big that every team, all 131 teams, get in. But you're still going to have opt-outs. It's stupid. I don't know how to express my feelings without ranting.
Yeah.
And I don't. We're on here to talk to you guys over call-ins. So I guess maybe because we started late, that's why we're not getting anyone, or.
And I hope I didn't frustrate anybody with what I said. It's just telling the truth. I mean, it literally is the truth. Sometimes the truth is hard. I don't like saying
it hurts, but
I mean,
if they really want the postseason to mean more, then they will have to go back to pre-BCS bowl system, where we had the possibility of having multiple national champions. If there were a chance to win a national title by winning a single bowl game, there'd be less opt-outs. I don't know.
Yeah.
In today's generation, I don't know, man.
I don't think it matters.
It was different back then. It was just different back then.
yeah.
Players and teams. I mean, think about it. I mean, you don't even have to talk about money here. It's not even about dollars. Look at the portal. Players are not committed to their team anymore. Like if your team had a bad season, there's a good chance that the best few players on that team are leaving. They're getting the heck out of Dodge. Why? Because they're sick and tired of playing on a bad team. They're not committed to team anymore. They're committed to the best opportunity to play.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I mean, the portal has ruined that as well.
Exactly.
I mean, used to you would have players play all 5 seasons at school, put their blood, sweat, and tears out for that team. 4 or 5 years if they had a redshirt year or whatever, then they had a 5th year. They'd play, and they would do everything they can for that team to win. And sometimes they would never make a bowl, but they wouldn't leave. The portal, I mean, you've got players leaving off of Alabama. Look at Georgia. They won the title, and Jermaine Burton transferred to Alabama. How did that make sense? It doesn't make sense. You just won the national title, and you transfer to Alabama. These players just obviously don't care about these teams anymore. As much as we want to say, you're putting your life out on what Max Duggan did. TCU quarterback against Kansas State. Bryce Young all season for Alabama. A lot of these players just aren't anymore. For their team, they don't
all about
care
the brand
about
now.
anymore. They only care about their best chance to look good on TV for a better team. And if their team's not doing it for them, they're leaving. I'm not saying that's wrong either, but it's just reality.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
They got somebody in their ear constantly in their private life about that money.
Because these college players have these agents now, and that used to never be the case.
Yeah. Here's the thing is like, okay, you're not for me, it wraps back around to CJ. CJ, if you're not willing to put your life on the line now, put your body, sweat, soul, and tears on the field, leave it all out there now, What makes you feel you deserve to do it in the NFL? Because you're making more money? That's a load of garbage.
I mean, look at JT Daniels. I
Look
mean,
at
he was
Justin
at
Fields.
USC. He was at USC, and then he was at Georgia, and then he was at West Virginia. Now he's leaving again. I mean, that guy. I mean, I understand
He's
why
already played
left.
in 3 of the Power 5 conferences.
Would that have happened 5 years
I will
ago?
say,
No.
Like his title card,
Justin Fields.
title card should be saying "Have gun."
Traveling fools. What's up?
Traveling fools, you can call in if you want, because I know you like to talk. For sure, you
Absolutely.
can call in.
Yeah, JT Daniels' card should say "Have gun."
Here's the link, Traveling Fools.
Yeah, JT Daniels should basically have like a little business card that says "Have gun, will travel."
Hey.
Wire JT Daniels.
Here's the thing. I want to point this out. I know a lot of quarterbacks that have high draft stock, like we're getting into it, but look at Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields.
That's my
Trevor
point.
Lawrence went number 1. They put their bodies out there. Justin Fields had cracked ribs against Clemson when he got hit cracked his ribs, and he still finished the game. He didn't care. He cared about winning the national title that year. Like, those guys cared about their team still.
It just seems like we're getting to a point where there's fewer and fewer players that are. And it's really sad to see, because when you can tell, that's not good. Because you as a viewer, when you're watching a team, you want to believe that a player's giving it 110%. Like, another thing, I really feel negative about saying it, but it's reality. Look at players, though. Even in the NBA and the NFL, you see how players miss games because, their finger is sprained or something. Dude, players in the past used to play with broken toes, broken fingers, sometimes even broken arms, and they're out there playing. And today, players are missing, especially in basketball, for load management and sprained ankles and all this kind of stuff. Players used to play through that stuff. I'm
some
not saying
people
that's
just play
wrong
broken
either, but
collarbones.
players are making millions of dollars in the NBA and the NFL to miss tons of games over dumb injuries. Stuff that my family works hard every day, especially specific people I know that work out in life. They're hurting, but they have to work. They have to get paid. If they don't work, they don't get paid. These players get paid even when they miss games over stupid crap. I'm sorry, but it's literally you cannot tell me that some of these players, like for instance, back to back. You have these back to back, especially in the NBA. Player doesn't play in the second game of a back to back because he's like 33 years old. It's like, if that's the case, then you shouldn't be playing anymore. That's why players retired back in the 80s and 90s a lot around when they were like 30 years old. And players now, they want to play till they're 40 and they want to make millions and millions of dollars. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but you got to play. It's your job. Unless you are physically unable, you should work. NBA and NFL is a job. College might not be, but it kind of is becoming that because of NIL. And that's their fault. That's the NCAA. That's the player. That's everybody that wanted this. Maybe the NCAA didn't want it, but if you're making money, you're supposed to play through it. You're supposed to play through the pain unless you are physically unable, because that's what real Americans do in jobs. The NFL and the NBA is a job. If you are able to play, you should be able to play. And if people think that that's wrong, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I've said anything that's upset people, but that's life. That's legit.
So, because we're a college sports show, if you're this furious over this,
I'm not furious. I'm just
I know. I use quotes.
I probably shouldn't even have brought it up.
What? Well, no, because it opened the right door. It opened the right door with my question. All right. No problem. So if you feel this way about this, and I'm only asking because I want a deep dive from you, really all you guys, but I want a deep dive from you specifically because we don't have any callers. What is your deep dive thoughts on the one and done? Because the NIL and the opt-outs for football are basically the same issue with the one and dones in college basketball.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, my thing is that just football's different because you're not mature enough to go from high school to the NFL. You can't do it. But in basketball, you can. And, with these one and dones, it's really frustrating because of the fact that if some of these players that are capable, like Zion Williamson, he could have just left from high school and gone to the NBA. But the rule is you got to go to college for 1 year. And it doesn't do them any good because they go to college for 1 year. And the argument is, well, they get to learn things in life at college for that 1 year that, will better prepare them for the NBA as an adult. And yeah, that might be true, but they're only going to college for that year because they have to, not because they want to. They could just go from high school to pro like that. Instead, they don't, and they go to college for 1 year, and most of them go to Kentucky or Duke. And that's it. And
Here's
it's
the
just
thing on
1
that
year,
too,
and then they
Jeffrey.
go pro, and that's it. And then it's like,
Yeah.
there's no attachment
Well, here's
to
the thing
players
too.
because they're there for 1 year and they're gone, and that's it. And it's not like when you have a 4-year player that's played all 4 years and you remember that player. I'm not saying that matters either, but it's like if these players are capable of going from high school to pro, just let them do it because the college for 1 year just doesn't really do them any good anyway.
Well, you look at someone like John Morant, Jeffrey. He spent all 4 of his years at Murray State, and he wasn't projected to be nothing, and he got picked second overall behind Zion. So it does do you some good if you're like John, you can rise your stock. But I get your point. If you're Zion, you already know the teams are licking their chops waiting to take you. But it still serves its purpose to people who don't have as high as draft stock as those guys. Look at Trace Jackson Davis this year. Do you think he's one and done?
No, I mean for sure that he was not capable of going pro when he first got to Indiana. I mean, he couldn't really do the things that he's capable of doing now. That's not what I was saying. I was only saying, and I know that you know that, I think, but I was saying only for the players that you already know that they are, capable of it. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You can't justify them saying that going to college for a year helps them when they don't even really want to be there. They just wanted to go in and go pro. And to your point about John Morant, he was only at Murray State for 2 years. He was only in college for 2 years.
Now, I will say, go ahead.
But most players need college. Most players need college. It's only for the selected few that are capable of the jump.
Now, I will say, and I don't know for a fact that this happens more in basketball, but okay, Steph the Chef Curry graduated, went to Davidson to get to the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't graduate. He left early. But did you guys know he graduated over the summer from Davidson?
Yeah, I remember that. I saw that.
Yeah.
So my point is, in the long run, it's okay to leave early, especially if you're basketball, because your career is going to be over a lot. Unless you're the real GOAT, LeBron, for whatever reason, you're still.
Basketball's hard, and it actually.
What I'm saying is, it's a lot. It's harder. It's harder, which makes you retire earlier, which leaves you with time to fill, unless you're going into the broadcasting business. You need some kind of degree or something to fall back on. So that's why most of these athletes, after they go pro or after they retire, they go back to school to finish their degree.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with players leaving early. That I have no issue with that. If you're capable enough as a basketball player, then go right ahead. But like James Scott points out here, right, some basketball players from UNC says didn't even have a third grade reading level. There were grades given them without it, or they're even attending class. So one of those is absurd. My point on that would be is that you can't. The problem with players is a lot of players, they're great athletes, but it kind of ties into what I said about you're a great athlete, but a lot of people trash bad players because they're not good, but they're smart individuals and and they're great people. Well, a lot of people that are great athletes are not, some anyway, are not, they don't have it in here. So basically that kind of ties into the point of a good person, bad person, good athlete, good, bad athlete. A lot of players go pro because of their ability, but they might not be ready in here. That's why, how many players have you known that have gone bankrupt because they didn't manage their money well? That's happened tons of times. Why? Because they didn't have it in here.
They didn't have the mental stability, and it's cost a lot of guys their careers.
Mm-hmm. And if they had it in here, then they wouldn't have gone bankrupt because you had millions and you blew it, or you did bad investments. And that's where you need to have the academics as well. But a lot of players don't care about that. And a lot of people point out North Carolina didn't do a good job with all that. But if you are not smart enough in life to do the things that you need to do, then you need to be, because it will benefit you. Because if you make a lot of money and you have it in here, you will have that money for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
But if you don't have it in there, then you'll end up broke and right where you started from. So that's why it's very important to learn.
And one important piece of advice is take advice from those from where you want to be in life. That's one of the most important things in life. And any opportunity you see, you take it. To make your life better, you take it.
I mean, look at Cam Rising. Back to football real fast. Cam Rising, he wasn't even the original starter at Utah. He was I think the third stringer at Utah, and now he's the starting quarterback about to play for a second Rose Bowl. I mean, so how life can change on a whim.
Draft isn't talking about Cam Rising again. I don't know why they're not.
Yeah, he should be in the conversation. Perfect example of why the draft is interesting on how they
listening to Mel Kiper.
Great quarterbacks like Will Levis high, but Cam Rising is low. Again, not saying Cam Rising should be higher than Will Levis, but does anybody real quick remember who was the quarterback that was ahead of Cam Rising last year in 2021? Does anybody remember who?
Charlie Brewer, but then
he went to Liberty.
They lost to San Diego State.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I don't get this. Cam Rising doesn't get enough respect, in my opinion. This guy can ball. I don't know why he doesn't get the respect that most other quarterbacks do. Because you look at guys like Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Michael Penix. Those guys get all the love and the respect. Bo Nix. But Cam Rising is just as good, if not better, than some of those guys. And I think
perfect example.
He's proven it.
Perfect example for what you just said. And I understand that this is not comparable. Kind of like when we were talking about the rankings. And I said it's hard to rate a group of 5 higher up in the rankings because they don't play the same schedule. So if you had like a UTSA and they played in the SEC, they would not be 11-2 right now. They'd probably be 5-7. You know what I'm saying? It's just the way it is. They don't play the same schedule. So it's hard to rank them higher. But perfect example of that, Frank Harris, the quarterback for UTSA, literally his stats are insane. The guy this year has thrown 37 touchdowns, and he's got 10 rushing touchdowns. That is 47 touchdowns accounted for himself. And he only has like 6 picks. That is fantastic numbers. Those are elite numbers. Granted, it's a low level. He's played a lot of poor defense, but no one talked about him. Why? Because who he plays for. UTSA is not a brand. They don't care about what he's done. He's not going to win the Heisman, even though his numbers are better than every single quarterback that's in the Heisman race right now, except it's on par with Caleb Williams. Actually, you can make an argument Frank Harris's are better because Caleb Williams is only thrown 66% completion percentage and Frank Harris is thrown for 71%. So technically Frank Harris's numbers are better, but they're not going to give him credit for it because he did it against lower competition and on a non-brand team.
Well,
that's how it works.
And Jeffrey, I do want to make a point though, is that Florida game, you bring it up all the time. If Cam Rising doesn't make that dumb decision to throw the ball where he did, Utah wins that game. We'll not go down that rabbit hole. The point I'm making it is he doesn't get the respect because of what happened against Florida. They're like, oh, Cam Rising, he can't deliver in the big moment now. We can't trust this guy. all because he made one bad mistake. But if you look over his career, the Oregon game, USC, Washington, he's made big plays. But just because he made that one mistake against Florida, everyone thinks he's a bad quarterback and he can't play. It's ridiculous.
And that's
he deserves
sad
more
because
respect than that.
to your point about that, it's so true because even the Pac-12 guys, a lot of Pac-12 guys, man, would say, "Oh, Cam Rising." I was hearing in the middle before the USC game, I was hearing from Pac-12 people that Cam Rising was not a top 5 quarterback in the Pac-12 because of that game, and that's from the Pac-12 people and the nation.
It's one mistake, and I hate that they count that against him. Sorry to cut you off, but it just makes me mad that, like, when Bryce Young and them make mistakes, people just shake it off like, oh, it's okay. He's Bryce Young. He won't. But when Cam Rising does it, it's time to throw him out and pitch him to the side. Why is that? Like, does Cam Rising, does he not get credit for all the games that he has won? Like USC. The USC game, that was a special game, but that doesn't get talked about enough.
And like I was saying, even the Pac-12 guys were saying that Cam Rising wasn't a top 5 quarterback because of that game. And you talk about nationwide, it's even worse because people watched that game. They were like, Utah, you are a top 10 team, and you're going on the road at unranked Florida. Prove you can beat the SEC. Prove you can get it done. Prove that you're a competent conference. And like you said, Austin, he threw the pick at the end of the game. Utah lost the game, and literally everybody jumped off the Utah train. Everybody threw Cameron Rising under the bus, and that's just absurd because it was a week 1 game in a tough environment. He made a dumb mistake, but he's had a fantastic season. No, it's not Heisman level, but he's had a fantastic season, but he doesn't even get talked about because Utah's not a big super brand. And because of that game, that Florida game that he threw the pass, it's still in people's mind. You talk about Cam Rising. Oh, yeah, he's the guy that threw the pick in the Florida game. So, unfortunately, you are right, Austin. That's just the way it is.
And it sucks, too. And I'm not trying to take no shots across the fence at either guy, but if C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young make that mistake, they don't say nothing about it. It's just how it is. It's because Ohio State and Alabama, they are a brand. Utah, not so much.
Yeah. Even I think that's unfair.
That's why Max Duggan's not going to win the Heisman because his stats aren't even on the level of Caleb Williams, but they're not going to give it to him because of the fact Caleb Williams is on a brand team and he's got great numbers. So he's going to win it more than likely.
Mr. DeWeedy asked a question. Who wins, Utah or Penn State?
That's my answer.
All right. Well, I'll give you.
But let me ask you.
My answer.
Real fast.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Jackson. If you want to give away your bowl pick, go ahead.
Well, I think it's going to be Utah winning Penn State against Penn State because Penn State does not have a good record against top 10 teams. And, Cam Rising and Utah Utes, they're going to bring their A game in the Rose Bowl this year. It's going to be a great win.
Yeah, but let me ask you guys, where do you rank Cam Rising just as in general of all the quarterbacks? Is he top 10 in the entire nation when it comes to quarterbacks?
Good question.
No. Absolutely not.
Really?
I'll tell you where he is.
Okay, so we know the obvious ones, right?
I'll tell you where he is, though.
C.J. Stroud.
I'll tell you where he is, though. He's not in the top 10 because he's in the top 5.
Ooh.
Oh.
Talk about twist. I like it. I like it.
What do you think, Jeffrey? Is Cam Rising a top 10 quarterback in the nation?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean,
Here's the thing. We know C.J. Stroud.
You've got
Bryce
Caleb
Young.
Williams. You've got Caleb Williams, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young. Those are for sure. I mean, Max Duggan, I mean, this season has
Oh, we
been
put a
fantastic.
Pac-12 list on it.
Do you rate Max Duggan ahead of Cam Rising? Buckeye Mike?
Yeah.
So
Or
that's
he's
four.
right there at least. Yeah.
Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Max Duggan. Who else is there anybody else above him?
So
Cam Rising.
Caleb,
Hendon Hooker.
Drake May.
Caleb, Duggan,
I don't
Maybe.
even know
Rising.
if I'd put him ahead of Drake May. That might be a spicy take, but
So
I don't know if I
Caleb,
would.
Caleb, Duggan, Penix, Hendon Hooker, Cam Rising.
Oh, my
I
top-
mean,
You just said Caleb Williams. You do that again?
Caleb Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Williams. Jesus Christ. Everybody was talking. I forget. Caleb
Nice.
Williams. Caleb Williams, Bryce Young, Michael Penix Jr., Cam Rising, and Hendon Hooker.
my-
Are roughly-
No CJ Stroud at all.
not in the top five, no.
Go ahead, Jackson.
let me ask you real fast.
Okay.
JJ McCarthy are you taking him or
Who knew?
Rising?
Who knew? No.
That was an emphatic two
Tell it like
new
it is.
food in your mouth for sure.
Go ahead, Jackson.
Okay. Well, not gonna get. I don't think my screen's gonna get blocked out this time around. Let's see. Bryce Young, that's one. Hendon Hooker, that's two. 3 is Matt Duggan.
Hmm.
4 is Michael Penix. And number 5 is Caleb Williams.
I can agree with that. Cam Rising's probably outside the top 5, but
Yeah, for me too. But I do think NFL teams needs to really take a look at Cam Rising.
Here's the thing, Jackson. Why do you have Caleb Williams outside your top 5?
No,
had
he's
him
in-
5th.
yeah, I have him at 5.
That's correct. Thank you,
Okay.
Edward.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember.
I think it's Mike Penix and
Wait
Caleb.
a minute. You did not have Bryce Young in the top 5. How the heck? Caleb,
Bruh.
Max,
Because
Penix,
Bryce, CJ.
Bryce Young's outside the top 5.
Have you not watched Bryce Young at
Yeah,
all? 2022, bro.
Buckeye Mike, you got a lot of intelligence in your head, man, but that one is a little bit
Are
interesting.
you like doing?
Yeah.
Bryce Young is in the top 5 for sure.
He's
You're
arguably
you're not
top
just-
3.
You're not using anything of substance, are you?
Mm-mm.
Because you're a smart guy, man. I mean, is there a reason that Bryce Young is 6th?
I don't know. First of all, Caleb's going to win the Heisman.
Yes.
He's more of my kind of quarterback.
That's what we're watching.
Buckeye Mike, is that why Bryce Young's not top 3?
Well, here's the thing. Don't get me wrong. Bryce Young is good. Really good. I think you could almost maybe I'm not thinking clearly because I am tired. You could almost say some people could to a degree that Caleb Williams is Bryce Young on steroids or just a better version of Bryce Young. But don't get me wrong. Bryce Young will be probably the number one pick. He's up there. He's good. He's really good.
I heard
Uh-huh.
people saying a month ago that Bryce Young was the better version of Caleb Williams, and now Caleb Williams is the better version of Bryce Young. So I don't
You never
know
heard
who's
me
better.
saying that.
Who's the better version of who? That's the question.
I hear people say all the time that Caleb Williams is the next Patrick Mahomes, so we'll see.
I saw
Patrick
Kirk
Mahomes. No one even talked about him when he was at Tech.
Mm-hmm.
No one even said a word about him when he was at Texas Tech.
Well, what
So
got
that goes to show you don't know, man. I mean, you could get that 4th or 5th round. Look at Dak Prescott. I know a lot of people don't think he's any good, but he was drafted in the 4th round out of Mississippi State. So again, it's tough to gauge, man. It's tough to gauge.
well, I mean,
The problem is there's so many good quarterbacks in the top 10, and I just rattled off names. I didn't even really list it in order.
Mm. I mean, Spencer Rattler against Tennessee's in the top 5, but only against Tennessee.
J.G. McCarthy's too new.
Yeah, Drake May, I said it's close. I said Drake May's right in the conversation. I'd even arguably put him over Cam Rising for the first 9, 10 weeks of the season. But the
So-
last 3 weeks were awful.
Edward has a question. So my question is, how's May not in the top 5 the way he played as a freshman? Well,
Like I said, the last 3 weeks were tough, but he was fantastic early on.
Russell
Uh-oh.
Wilson was a 3rd rounder also, and people tend to forget that he went from NC State to Wisconsin.
Yep.
I still can't believe he was a Wisconsin quarterback.
for
Like,
one,
when I first saw that, like 8 years ago, man, because I was getting into football and I was looking up like the quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm like, Russell Wilson played for Wisconsin. It's like, man, I didn't know that.
but the fun fact though was he was going to be originally playing baseball, but he was like, okay, I'm gonna stick with football.
Tyler
So
was
where's
the same
Stetson
way.
Bennett then?
Hmm.
Where's Stetson Bennett then? Is he out of the top 10?
Oh,
Where's he
He's
at?
top 15.
Top 15. I agree with that. I mean, I'm just asking. Like, I'm not saying he should be in the top 10. I'm just asking a question.
He's not bad, but he can't single-handedly go win you a game.
Yeah.
Like Caleb Williams, Bryce Young, Hendon Hooker, Rising, those guys can single-handedly go win you a game. Stetson Bennett, not really. Or at least he hasn't shown it yet.
Is Stetson Bennett better or Sean Clifford?
Sean Clifford.
Stetson Bennett.
Ooh.
reluctantly, I'm gonna have to agree with Austin. Stetson Bennett.
Yeah, I'm on the fence there, but I think Stetson Bennett's a bit less.
He won it all
Turnover
last year
prone.
against Bama.
I mean, there's something about Sean Clifford where he makes the most inopportune errors in games. It's just like, I don't even know.
Big
Like
boy.
that Purdue, you remember that Purdue game at the beginning of the season when he threw that ball like 20 yards over the receiver's head and it got easily picked off and Purdue ran it all the way back for a touchdown? You remember that? That was just like, well, how? How do you throw that 20 yards over his head? I don't think Stetson Bennett makes a throw that badly. And I have mentioned several times Tom Brady was a 6th round pick. I probably said it 5 times. I mean, I've like stressed the point that where you're drafted doesn't mean whether you're going to be good or not. You can be drafted number 1 overall like Ron Leaf, and you see where that goes. It just work because you're drafted where you are doesn't mean anything. Will Levis can be drafted top 10 and he stinks, or he can be drafted in the 7th round and be elite. It's tough to
Baker
say.
Mayfield, another perfect example. Look at what he's doing. He ain't doing much of anything,
He's
and
not
he was
Ron
the number
Leaf,
1 pick.
He's not Ron Leaf, though, because he did at least have one great season at the Browns. Statistically, one great season.
Yeah.
Ron Leaf just struggled all the time. Jamarcus Russell, when he drafted number 2, and then he couldn't not gain 50 pounds in the offseason.
Yeah, Jamarcus Russell was awful.
I mean, he was a fumble machine because he weighed too much. I mean, you can't play quarterback at 280. You know what I'm saying? It's just not really conducive, man. Okay, that's a better list for sure. Yes, that Bryce is it's in the top 5. I can at least agree with you, maybe not putting Stroud for the reasons we've listed, but Bryce Young has to be in the top 5. The only reason why he's not in the
He
Heisman
has to
discussion
be.
is because Alabama missed the playoff and he missed a game and a half.
Well,
That's it.
see, here's the thing. I did this because I know other opinions shouldn't matter unless you can say it to my face. But like you said, I am smart. I
was
know
kidding.
what
I
the
was
crap
kidding.
I'm talking about.
I was kidding, man.
No. I'm just saying. I don't know who would go back and watch this besides myself. But people go back and watch and have opinions. I don't want someone thinking I'm stupid just because of me
Oh, you're
listing
not.
off some names and I'm running on 4 hours of sleep. I want
Dude.
that to be known too.
You're a smart guy, man. I was just kidding around for one. And number two, I mean, dude, look at the gaffes I've had on here, man. I'm not gonna talk about that Miami quarterback from a few weeks ago. So I mean, dude, I was just kidding around. Dude. You're good.
No, I know you were. It wasn't
It's funny.
towards you. It was towards the chat of whoever will of the certain people that may go back and watch.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's all fun anyway to talk about. It's tough to put a definitive list together because I mean, this stuff can change overnight. I mean, only reason why Bryce maybe has slipped in some people's minds because Alabama didn't make the playoff and he got hurt a game and a half. And Caleb Williams,
I mean, if you want a discussion, I was going to mention that. If you want a discussion, I would almost put Cam at 4 and put Penix at 5.
Mm-hmm.
My point is that is a definitive top 5. You could almost put whoever you want wherever in the top 5, but that's my definitive top 5 quarterbacks.
Yep.
But what I was saying was it's interesting. It's just lists that you put together, but it's tough to do because people's minds change on a dime on quarterbacks based on their last performance. Caleb Williams, he was the guy for sure, and then he got hurt, and that's people's last opinion. Whoa, he threw a pick, and he was hurt and hobbly a little bit. He still threw for 360, but still, it doesn't matter. Bryce Young, he was the guy, and now he slipped a bit in people's minds because he got hurt, and Alabama's playoffs. That's the way this stuff works. Your mind can change on a quarterback and a dime. People are saying Baker was a top half of the league quarterback just 2 years ago, and now he's the worst in a lot of people's minds. That's just the way people's thoughts change based on the last thing you've done. It shouldn't, because the whole body of work should matter. It's kind of like, Austin, you were pointing out when you lose or win at the beginning of the season that it should still be taken into account. But the reason why it's not is because people, including committees, remember the last thing they've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, people don't remember either. Like the USC game, Cam Rising, that was a special night. He might not ever replicate that game again, but that was a night he played special when everyone was talking about him. And then the next game after that, no one was talking about him again. I just don't get it sometimes.
Chat, we have time for one more discussion before we go. One more topic. What do you guys want us to talk about?
Yeah, I guess we all got our votes wrong on how many callers we were gonna get. I should have said 0. Then it would have been.
Well, we started an hour late. That's the problem. For whatever reason, with the freaking. Whoa!
Yes.
Hello!
I should have said 1. I should have said 1. Yes.
What's up, man?
We have a caller.
So my question was, what was your reasoning for putting Cam 5? Not like 5 to 4. Like, what was your reasoning behind it? Because I didn't get here when I joined in mid conversation, so I was interested on how you got to that reasoning.
Like what makes him top 5 for me?
Yeah.
Well, and it goes. That's why this was hard for me, because if you look at my top 5, it's all quarterbacks that either are dual threat, they have a whole lot of heart, soul, and guts that they just leave out on the field in case of Max Duggan, or they're like a quarterback that deserves credit and just hasn't gotten any credit in the case of Michael Penix. But to me, Cam Rising kind of has all of that. I mean, he was told, you're not going to be able to go out and beat USC. You can't do this, you can't do that. Oh, you suck because you lost to Florida by 3. You cost us the game. Cam's a great quarterback, and I mean, everybody makes mistakes. I don't know.
I mean, I've never been crucial on that Florida game ever, personally. I mean, I'm not the real MVP that where one game at the beginning of the year when a guy slips down and he throws the ball to a receiver that fell. I mean, how does that make a game, like personally?
You know how influential a guy is when our first caller brings him up within the first minute of talking.
That's the king
Well,
of
here's
doing
the
it.
thing.
He always down talks Utah because of that Florida game. But see, that's what I don't understand is you had a wide open receiver who fell on the play in the end zone that if he didn't slip, he catches a touchdown, game over, right? Like it wasn't like Cam Rising cost them
And Utah
the game,
looked that different.
completely crap the bed, right? But see, my argument is how do you put Cam there when in everything you just stated, you have Drake May, right? Who did it with his legs. He led his team in rushing. That team could not fucking run the ball, but Drake May figured out ways to run the ball, right? He threw for all those yards, all those touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
He was a freshman, and like Jeffrey's point, he looked bad, but that's to him being a freshman. And he still was able to do what he did as a freshman. Like, that is what is so impressive to me with Drake May. Is it wasn't that he did it like, over multiple. This guy came in first season and lit the college world on fire. And he doesn't get enough credit at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this dude wasn't getting talked about the Heisman until 2 weeks before, a week before he crapped the bed.
Yeah, I wasn't saying that. I was just saying that for what he did, unfortunately, in the last 3 games, which I've on previous shows have defended Drake May, that in that Georgia Tech game, he threw a perfect touchdown pass to Josh Downs, and he dropped the pass in that game.
Yeah.
And then obviously they lost to NC State on a field goal miss. So I'm not saying Drake May completely was horrible. I'm just saying that would be the reason a lot of people would not have him in their top 5 because of the last thing they saw was North Carolina losing their last 3 games and struggling.
100%.
I never put a list together because I don't really have one. I didn't say he wasn't a top 5 for me. I just said that's why they.
I literally, right when you said, I don't know, Drake May had 3 bad games, and then Mike gave off his top 5. So I just assumed y'all all gave your top 5 quarterback list or whatever, because that's how I joined. I joined.
Oh, you're good.
That's why. I just think Drake is just a crazy good quarterback, and everyone in the country just underrates him beyond belief. I mean, you look at his stat line. His stat line is almost second to none, like completely, like QBR, touchdowns, touchdown to interception ratio, yards with his feet, like just overall, that kid is blistering college football, but doesn't get enough credit. That's why I thought it was hard to even put Cam Rising in at top 5, because just looking at Drake May, it's like, yeah, that last game for Cam Rising was sick, but as a whole season, Drake May kind of lit up the college football world.
Did you hear what I said about Frank Harris?
No.
Frank Harris, earlier in the stream, I said that this season for UTSA, and the thing is who he plays for and the schedule that they play, why he's not getting any credit, but he has 37 touchdowns, 6 picks, and 10 rushing touchdowns. That's 47 touchdowns accounted for. That's 1 more than Caleb Williams. That's the most in college football, but he's getting no credit because of the fact who he plays for. That's just how it works. Unfortunately, North Carolina and Utah are not respected enough, and UTSA definitely isn't.
No, and see, that's why when you really want to break down a top 5 list, right? I get putting Bryce in there. This year, I feel like it would be hard. Like, if you're only doing like a this year list, it's hard for me to put Bryce in there just because, like this guy said down here, Nix had a crazy year. Penix had a crazy year. Drake May had a crazy year. Caleb Williams had a crazy year. I'm trying to think of another one. CJ Stroud had a good
Hendon
year.
Hooker before the
Hooker
injury.
Phenomenal year before he got hurt. Like, that's why it would be hard for me to put Bryce Young for this year. If you're talking about just college football quarterbacks in general, not a year, just since they've been playing, yeah, I get throwing Bryce up there because Bryce has something like, to Mike's point, he's got some heart. You look at that Texas drive, that game-winning drive where it's money on the line. I need you to make every fucking throw. I need you to stand in the pocket, get destroyed to make some of these throws. Bryce Young showed it, right? Bryce Young 8 disgusting hits
Yeah.
to make throws. So I get that. So that's why I was like, well, what are they talking? They talking about a career? They talking for this year? Because, I mean, Nix, May, Penix, CJ or Caleb Williams, and Hendon Hooker would be my top 5 for this year because they just for the FBS level, they just had crazy years for a quarterback. Ridiculous numbers. But if you're talking about for a career, yeah, Bryce has got what you want in a quarterback besides height, right? He's not that tall. So you'd like a guy a little bit taller than him, but he's got that moxie. He's going to go out and put everything on the field. If it hurts his body or not, he's going to go try to get you that damn W.
Now, Edward, you bring that up, but you can also make the same statement about Cam Rising, too. I mean, look at what he did for Utah.
Yeah, but his numbers aren't great. The moxie is there, right? But his numbers aren't fantastic. Bryce Young had great numbers last year, but his offense struggled this year because fucking receivers couldn't catch the ball. So that would be my only thing about Cam Rising. His numbers just aren't overly impressive.
So let me ask you this: what would your top 5 be?
For what I gave for this year, or for like a career, like just active quarterbacks, who would be in my top 5?
Both.
Well, for this year, Caleb's got to be 1. You can put, in my opinion, Penix or May at 2 or 3, just based on just what they did for their teams. Nix is right behind that, and Hendon's right behind that. And I could even put Hendon a little higher than Nix, just because, honestly, the drop-off between Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton is crazy. And people don't realize that, but it is.
Except against Vanderbilt.
Yeah, against Vandy. But you saw against South Carolina, that dude couldn't do nothing. And then when he was at Michigan, that dude almost lost to fucking Rutgers. Like, that's why he transferred from Michigan, because he got so much flack because he couldn't hit an open receiver against Rutgers. Like, so that's when I'm like, the drop off between Drake May and his backup, I couldn't even imagine, like, at all. Like, I don't even know who the backup is. I mean, that's how good Drake May's been. Like, you couldn't, like, Caleb Williams, that dude was hurt in the championship game, and they didn't even want to bench him for a couple drives to even see what the backup had.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those are the type of crazy things when you think of some quarterbacks.
It's like, I don't know. It's like ranking by position is hard. Just like ranking in general is hard because, like,
it's opinion based.
Well, yeah, it's opinion based, and you need to have enough sleep to think straight to actually have a legitimate list. But it's like Edward said, which way do you go about comparison? Because you can't compare Cam to Drake if you're talking career, because Cam's been in the league longer.
Yeah, I mean, Cam's only played 2 years, which a lot of people don't even know. He's been in for 3, but he's only played 2. And his numbers are actually very similar to each other, which I doubt a lot of people know that either. I mean, this year he threw for 2,939 yards, 25 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Last year he threw for 2,493 yards and 20 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Like those aren't great numbers. Those are good numbers. Like most teams in the in the country would take that compared to what a lot of quarterbacks are probably giving them. You think of Big Ten quarterbacks, how many of those guys would want Cam Rising, right? Like probably damn near almost all of them. So that's why I say like it's hard. Like, what are you basing it on? Are you throwing just some statistics and the eye test in there? Because in my opinion, that's kind of what you need, like have to do when you talk rankings. It can't be just completely opinion, because then some of the rankings is just who you like more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Edward, do you think that Will Levis should be as high as he is in the draft boards?
I mean, to be honest with you, if you look at him and AR-15, which a lot of people give flack for, those kids have what the NFL look for, right? They have arm strength. They have speed with their legs. Like, they can move. They take hits. They're tough. And the only thing they don't really have is accuracy, right? Like, Will Levis was pretty accurate last year when he had a good offensive line, but this year, that offensive line was dead last in the country. They gave up like 58 sacks or something like that, most sacks in the country. So, I mean, it's tough for me this year to say Will Levis, yes. But, I mean, if you look at the way the NFL drafts, yeah, 100%. Because he looks like Josh Allen did at Wyoming. How many people watched Josh Allen at Wyoming? The man completed 53% of his passes. But once he got to the NFL with a quarterback coach, it all changed, right? You seen the first year he struggled. The second year, which was like night and day, right? It flipped on. It was good. Like, I remember when he got drafted, it was like, nobody wanted Josh Allen to get drafted. And now everybody wants Josh Allen as a quarterback. So Will Levis has that potential. But it's like I said, does he go to the right situation, right quarterback coach? A lot of that's going to play into if he even succeeds in the NFL, right?
I agree with that. I mean, that makes complete sense. And I did say earlier when we were talking about it, because I brought it up, that, I mean, the way he's played this year, and you're right, offensive line wasn't very good, but he should not be where he's being talked about. I mean, with what you're saying, the way the NFL drafts and how, what the type quarterback that they want, yes, it makes complete sense. But for what he's done this year, it doesn't. And that's why I'm saying I don't think he should be drafted as high. But if he goes in the NFL and succeeds, I mean, again, where you're drafted doesn't matter. How many quarterbacks have been drafted low and they've been fantastic. So, again, when I said earlier that I don't think he should be drafted in the top 15 of the draft, it doesn't necessarily he's never going to succeed in the NFL. He could, and he could be one of the best ever. It's just for what he's done this season, it's not justifiable.
I mean, no. I mean, you could say that about – see, this is the thing, too. Like, a lot of people want to say, oh, Lamar Jackson is great. But you look at Lamar Jackson, perfect example. You put him on a different team who doesn't do what Baltimore did. Because if you think of how Baltimore plays football, how many teams out there run the ball 60, 70 times? That is strictly a run-based offense with a lot of play-action passes. They don't ask him to drop back 40 times a game and sling that rock. That's why I have a hard time with people like, oh, Lamar Jackson is, this on the list. I'm like, I think he's great in Baltimore. If you put him in OKC, I'm thinking basketball, and KC with where Pat Mahomes switched their rosters, I think Pat Mahomes might still be able to do a little bit of what he can do in Baltimore, but I don't think Lamar Jackson can drop back and pass. He's never been able to do it ever since college, and in the pros, he shows you he still struggles to drop a five step drop, go from progression to progression, my 1, my 2, my 3, and throw the ball. It's normally run, play action pass. My 1 is Mark Andrews, and I'm just dumping it off to him.
So, Edward,
that's my point that I've said in the past, talking about when you have running quarterbacks, it's very hard to tell, not that they're good, because obviously their athleticism is off the charts. But that's why when you look at Caleb Williams, and he still played pretty well when he was hobbled in in the Pac-12 championship game. But when you're a running quarterback, you use that to throw better. Cam Newton, for example, got demolished once he could not run the football anymore. His passing game just completely tanked because he used the run game to pass. And that's what you're saying with Lamar Jackson. He is only a decent passer because they run so much, and then he's able to get wide open passes off of it. Ryan Tannehill, to me, is a below average quarterback, but he's succeeding somewhat at the Titans because he's got Derrick Henry next to him. It takes so much pressure off of you. That's where certain situations work. When you're a great quarterback, you're able to succeed in almost any situation. That's why you said Mahomes could make it work at the Ravens. I think that's a great point. And I think if you're not a running quarterback and you're a passing quarterback, strictly that can run, I think you're a better quarterback because of the fact that you can last longer in the NFL without taking hits and getting hurt as much, and because of the fact you can actually do what a quarterback is supposed to do and throw the ball, and you don't need the run to succeed at passing.
So, first of all, the one thing with Ryan Tannehill that I would classify him as a good quarterback, you got to remember, Ryan Tannehill originally was not a quarterback. Ryan Tannehill originally was a wide receiver.
I know that. I didn't say that he was bad. I just said that.
No. I know. I just for the people. Granted, there's probably nobody out there in our chat right now that thinks that he's not. But I'm saying
every time I say something, it's like it's true, but there's caveats to it. Like I understand that. I'm just saying. Like,
and my other point is, so like, yes, Edward. Some of it is the Browns fan in me that comes out by saying this, but I really don't like Lamar Jackson. He's not – I'm not trying to get flack for saying this again with a different quarterback. He's not my kind of quarterback. Because to your point, I forget who said it, he can run the ball, which is great. Somebody said basically Cam all over again because Cam Newton, when he couldn't run – and was forced to throw, he couldn't throw worth a dang. And Lamar Jackson just doesn't – he's kind of classified as a dual threat quarterback because he can throw if he has to, but he's the complete opposite of CJ. Oh, don't make me throw the ball because I don't want to. I want to run the ball.
Yeah, but that's why it's hard for me to, when you think about CJ Stroud, that's why I didn't even have him in my top 5. I put Hendon Hooker just because if the kid would run, like, don't get it wrong, a mobile quarterback, not a running quarterback, a mobile quarterback, which is what I believe Caleb Williams is. Because when you look at him, he does a lot of scrambling to throw, kind of like Drew Brees did. He doesn't do a lot of just, I'm going to take off and run. He does when they do RPOs and stuff like that, but when when it's a passing play, he normally scrambles to throw. So it's a little different with me and him, but Lamar Jackson, he's got an arm. Like, that's not his problem. It's not like he doesn't have a fucking cannon. The kid can throw 70 yards downfield. Like, he's got an arm. He's just inaccurate. Like, a lot of people didn't know this statistic when he was in college. When inside the pocket with a clean pocket, he passed for 45% completion percentage or something like that, 48, something like that. When he was outside the pocket moving, he threw for like 67. Like, it was a completely different quarterback. It's like he needed his legs to be able to get his eyes where he wanted them. It was weird. And that's kind of what you're seeing with the Ravens is the couple games, I'll say that the playoff games is what really just shows you what it is. Lamar Jackson's a great quarterback, but when you stop the run, you sell out, which means a lot of teams put safeties in the box. Like, they'll take linebackers off the field, put a safety in the box to make him throw the ball. He's not that accurate. And that's why I've said if he can get accurate, be able to drop back, 5-step drop, throw the football, dude, that dude will be the best quarterback in the NFL because of how fast he is, the way he runs the ball. He doesn't necessarily get the big hit. He'll run, he'll slide, he'll do things like that. That's what scares me with Josh Allen is he's going to take that fucking hit. He's going to get fucking whopped. And when those hits add up, that's the problem. And that's why I really, really, really wish Lamar would get with a passing coach and just get better, because he could be fucking amazing. Like, he really could be the best quarterback in the NFL with his legs and how fast he is and elusive. He's got a strong arm. He needs to get the accuracy down. He needs to get, like, Ken Dorsey needs to become his fucking quarterback coach. That's who helped Josh Allen. That's who he needs.
Now, anybody wants to know where I stand, this is exactly where I stand. This is the type of quarterback I'm looking for. I prefer a Justin Fields, Braxton Miller. I'd even go a stretch and say JT Barrett type of quarterback, or a mixture of all three, rather than a CJ. I'm going to be a statue, even though I have moments where I'm not, and stand in the pocket and throw the ball.
My thing is my favorite type of quarterback is someone that's a great passer that will run, because I don't like quarterbacks that – I love Josh Allen. I think he's fantastic, but the problem is again, like Edwards said, he's taking way too many hits. Cam Newton, I watched Cam Newton basically get murdered over and over on that football field. And it's like, dude, you were awesome. Home state NFL team watched the Panthers play all the time, man, every week. And that guy, the more he got hit, the worse he got. And the thing is, you can't do that. You have to pass the ball. You have to be a great passer that can run, that will run. Don't take the hits. Get out of bounds. Slide. Do the things necessary that won't get yourself killed. Those are the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You got to be able to run, but you can't take the hits, and you have to be a great passer, something that, as Edward said, currently Lamar Jackson is not.
So, Edward, let me ask you this. What do you classify Lamar as? Do you classify him as bad, good, great, amazing? What classification?
No, so the general public, and I say this because it is true, the general public put Lamar Jackson top 5 in the NFL right now, right? Like a lot of people, like ESPN, right. A lot of them have him top 5. Like, it's crazy. But see, the thing is he's probably a top 10 quarterback easy. I'm talking like easy. The kid just can't, like, because the reason why I say top 5 quarterback is because he wins. He wins in that offense, which is big. The unfortunate thing is when you talk about just straight quarterback talent, like, oh man, who's my greatest quarterbacks of all time? You know, it's obviously you're going to have to put Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers at the top of that list of active quarterbacks. But the way a lot of the general public looks at these things is, okay, Tom Brady's not having a great year, so he's not even in the top 5 anymore. Aaron Rodgers isn't having a great year.
Wow.
Yeah, to me, I'm not the general public, obviously, because of the fact I would put Tom Brady, I'd have Aaron Rodgers, I would have Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. They're ahead of Lamar.
Now, see, like, for me,
I would too.
I have a lot of, like, I've never liked the player Tom Brady, because, like, a lot of people don't like
from Michigan.
Bama. Well, no, because he didn't do a whole lot in Michigan. So, like how people don't like State, don't like Bama, you know, the top teams in in college football. He wins way too much. It irritates me watching him. It's crazy because it makes me mad to watch him every Super Bowl Sunday, playing in the Super Bowl and majority of the time winning. But at the same time, that's what makes him great. Like, yeah, he's great, and I give him his credit. I don't like putting him as the number 1 current quarterback, but who else are you going to put there? Aaron Rodgers? No, Aaron Rodgers is not as good as Tom Brady.
Oh, 100. Well, see, this is my thing, right? Aaron Rodgers has got the talent, right? There's no doubt. Like, he can scramble. He's got a strong arm. But the thing that makes Tom Brady special is he does it with anything and everything, right? Like, being a Patriots fan, I remember we had no fucking wide receivers, but he made those wide receivers household names. Wes Welker, Julian Edelman. People don't realize Julian Edelman was drafted as a fucking special teams player who was a quarterback in college. We used as a safety before we turned him into Danny Amendola. Like, I could go on and on. Deion Branch. Like, these guys weren't what they were. The best wide receiver he's ever had is Randy Moss, who he had for a year and a half, and Troy Brown. Like, The rest of them are tight ends. But then you look at them, the games we can't run the ball, which there are a lot of them. It was dink and dunk, dink and dunk, dink and dunk. How many quarterbacks in the NFL can beat you just dinking and dunking the ball? We're going to get 5 yards, 10 yards, 6 yards, 5 yards, 4 yards, 3 yards. And that's what he'll do.
Drew Brees.
He'll do that without a problem to win the game. But
Drew
a lot of
Brees
quarterbacks,
is one in that category.
yeah. But see, the problem with Drew Brees is he's going to take that one risk, right? That I'm going to throw downfield in a double coverage because I think my guy can beat your guy. Which there's nothing wrong with that, but that's what he's going to do. That's what he did with Marcus Colston. That's what he did with Mike Thomas.
Mhm.
And those get you picks. Tom Brady doesn't really force those. Yeah, everyone throws picks. That's not my point, but like he's going to methodically just look at your defense, realize who's the weak point. Where do I have to move this guy? He'll move a guy pre-snap all the way over, tell him to run a completely different route because he knows this route will beat this coverage, and I'm just going to dink and dunk down the field. How many quarterbacks pre-snap in the NFL right now would y'all say can methodically look at a defense and say, hey, this is what we're about to do, guys. This play, fuck it. We're about to win this play because this play is going to get us down the field. Boom, 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 touchdown.
Look at the game against the Saints. They were down 16-3, and then haven't scored. They've scored 3 points in 15 drives, and then the last 2 drives, Brady takes over.
Yep.
It's like I've heard a lot of people say that
Wins the game.
Tom Brady is a better version of Peyton Manning because realistically, and I do kind of agree, realistically, the only person that can really do what Brady does is Peyton Manning.
Yes.
But Brady just does it better because I guarantee you if you stick Brady on that Super Bowl team for the Colts that lost to the Saints, Brady probably doesn't throw that pick to that Saints corner that jumped the route basically.
Tracy Porter Jr.
Yeah, Tracy Porter Jr., yeah.
We ran it for a pick 6. Yeah.
Yep.
But see, that's the thing though.
Here's
Like,
my question.
go ahead.
Real fast. Do you think if you give Peyton Manning all the Patriots teams that Brady had, do you think Manning would still come up with 6 Super Bowls like Brady did?
No, and that's my point because, again, Peyton Manning is like his own classification, whereas Tom Brady is Peyton Manning, but on a better classification. It pains me to say it because I love Peyton. Peyton is one of my favorite all-time signal callers, along with Drew Brees. For whatever reason, they just don't have what Brady has that makes Brady Tom Brady. It's like there's Tom Brady, and then as Skip Bayless would say, there's Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr.
Exactly. See, this is my question too, is when you look at the Colts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dwight Clark. Who is Dwight Clark for the Patriots? Gronk?
No,
Okay,
I thought
so-
it would be Dallas.
Dallas.
Dallas Clark. Yeah,
Dwight
Dallas Clark would be Gronk. Yeah.
Yeah. So Gronk, right? How many
Mhm.
Super Bowls did Gronk play in his career with Tom Brady at the Patriots? Anyone know?
3 or 4.
Wrong.
Well,
He played
there's
Or was it 2?
2014, 2016,
he
2018.
played in 2, and in one of them he got hurt in the first quarter. He's been hurt almost every Super Bowl with the Patriots.
Yeah.
So we
in
were
other words,
able,
Gronk's not
we
a
were
factor.
able to win those games without our best player. Okay, how many Marvin Harrisons has the Patriots had?
Randy Moss.
And we had him for a year and a half. Peyton had Marvin Harrison his whole career. How many Reggie Waynes has the Patriots had?
Randy Moss.
You're naming the same player. You get my point?
No, I
That-
get what you're saying. I completely
That's
agree.
why I
because-
have a hard problem putting Peyton ever above Tom is because he had way more offensive talent and he had good defenses. People act like, oh, Tom had the greatest defenses of all time. Well, I mean, we got Bill Belichick. He's the greatest defensive coach of all time. But Peyton had great defenses with Bob Sanders and fucking Dwight Freeney and Robert Matheson and Antoine Bethea. I mean, I can go on and on about
I
these
agree
guys.
with your point about
Yeah,
that because I talked to my family about Peyton Manning and Tom Brady as well. And it's like I would bring up with Peyton Manning that the last 2 Super Bowls that he won, but both games he basically just managed the game. The defense won it for him. He didn't make mistakes, and they won in a low-scoring affair that the other team basically just flat out blew it, especially the Panthers. That one was just ridiculous.
And that's
how
why
bad they played. So it's nothing against
100%.
Peyton Manning, but their defense was fantastic, like you said, and he didn't really have to do anything incredible to win the game.
And they still had great players, like wide receiver wise, on that team. You think of Emmanuel Sanders and 88 Thomas. Marius Thomas.
So,
yeah, like he had still great wide receivers on that team. So it wasn't like you could just, guys, we're gonna load the box and make Peyton beat us, because he had the receivers to beat you.
right, and I'm not disagreeing with you. My point was like, Peyton is between Peyton and Drew Brees, they're my 2 favorite quarterbacks from the NFL. But as much as I don't like to, like a lot of fans, if you're not in the Boston area or Tampa area, Brady is the best quarterback. Yeah, I hate Brady.
You fucking hate him. I get it. There's no problem with that.
But
you got
A lot of
He is
people
the best
do
quarterback.
because he wins, man. It's like
Yeah.
he's down 28-3 and he wins, and then he's down 16-3 against the Saints with 5 to go and he wins. It's always Brady winning games that he shouldn't win, but he wins it, and only
here's the
he can
thing.
win it.
Here's the thing I'll say with Peyton. He had the weapons to win. He made critical mistakes at critical times to where because there are so many playoffs that Peyton was in, he should have went to the Super Bowl more than he did. He only went 4 times. He went 2. Peyton still, even though he loves to watch tape, break it down, and try to fix his mistakes, he still makes rookie errors, or he did. Even I would say up to one of the last couple of years that he played, because again, the pick that he threw in Super Bowl 44 against New Orleans, Joey Porter's pick 6, he read the receiver. He kept his eyes on the receiver. What kind of quarterback does that? A rookie quarterback. You cannot. That's the only problem with Peyton Manning. He made too many critical mistakes that a rookie would make at certain points. Otherwise, his resume as a Hall of Fame quarterback, still give him props as a Hall of Famer, he deserved it. His resume as a Hall of Fame quarterback would resemble Brady's as far as how many times he went to the playoffs, how many times he went to the AFC Championship, how many times he went to the Super Bowl. It would almost, in my opinion, they would mirror if Manning didn't have the faults that he does. Now, Edward, am I remembering this correctly? The pick 6 that Brady threw in the wild card game against the Titans, didn't he underthrow the receiver, or didn't the corner jump the route? It was one of those, wasn't it? Or was the ball tipped?
Pick 6 against the Titans. See, the one that killed us was
his last wild card game. I remember.
Yeah, his last game as a Patriot.
I mean, what sealed it was Logan Ryan in the end zone.
Because they were down inside their own 5. Brady was in the end zone and he threw the ball.
Oh yeah,
trying to just get it to the receiver.
That's the Logan Ryan play.
Yeah. Did Logan Ryan jump the route, or like I can't remember what happened exactly because it was so long ago.
No. So exactly what happens is Brady throws it to the inside of the receiver. The cornerback, I mean, it was a little bit of PI on the cornerback. They let it go. He tips the ball up. The ball literally goes in the air. Logan Ryan just grabs the ball out the air and runs it in the end zone. He's not even the one defending the receiver. Like, he legit, Brady throws it, boom, 35, grabs the guy a little bit, tips the ball. The ball goes straight up in the air. Logan Ryan grabs it out the air and runs it 6 yards in the end zone.
So that pick six is not on Brady like the Joey Porter pick six is on Peyton Manning. It just kind of happened in a flukish way.
No, I mean, because the PI wasn't called, it was a good play by the defender, knocks the ball up. I ski, guy grabs the ball and runs it in.
Makes sense.
But it wasn't like Logan Ryan making a play. It was more the other guy making it, and he was just able to capitalize on it.
It was like the other guy made, as you said, the other guy made the play, and Logan Ryan just happened to be right place, right time
exactly.
to completely capitalize.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
And see, to the one point you put in the chat, you'd rather have Justin Fields over CJ Stroud. I tell you right now, CJ Stroud's more talented than Justin Fields ever is. Arm talent alone, that kid is crazy. Compared to Justin Fields, like Justin Fields got great arm strength, but look at him in the NFL. Like his completion percentage is a little low. He doesn't like staying in the pocket too much. The games where he's like balling right now in the NFL is where they're saying, guys, we're going to just QB run this thing. Right? So I think if CJ Stroud was even a little bit mobile, he'd be dynamic.
So you don't. Oh, you're saying CJ. That's my whole point. Like
he refuses to run. CJ refuses to run. I don't know why. He just does. So
that was my whole point on the little rant I went on. It's like, why does putting your body on the line in the league compared to putting your body on the line in college make a difference? It shouldn't. Because if you show that you're willing to put your body on the line in college, then, it's part of why, in my opinion, I don't know for sure, but in my opinion, it's part of what makes your draft stock go up. Because if you're willing to put your body on the line for your college team, then that already signals to them in the pros that you're willing to do it for them too if you have to. But like you said, he just doesn't want to, and it's aggravating and irritating as an Ohio State fan when you know for a fact that he can do it. You've seen him do it, so he just needs to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's been several plays where he just stood in the pocket and refused to run, and but if he would have run, he'd have picked up 5-6 yards, first down, slid, did whatever. Like you don't have to take hits. So that's the other problem that a lot of people are like, oh man, Cam Rising took that hit. You need to do that for your quarterback. No, you got to be able to use your legs and pick up the easy yards is what a lot of people like to call them, the easy yards. Man, it's man coverage, nobody in the middle of the field. Let me just run it 6 yards for first down slide. Now, Brady made a living of that. I'm going to pick up 6 yards and slide, 4 yards and slide. Even his statue ass was willing to use his legs when needed. But yeah, I don't get Caleb's or CJ's reason for not wanting to use his legs. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me either.
That's why I love Drake May. Because that kid, he's got all the arm talent in the world. He can read a defense. He can do all this. But his ass is willing to run the football. And they don't run like QB run plays. Like Jeffrey, if he can contest. Like they don't say, hey, we're going to call a QB fucking draw for Drake May. They don't do that. He gets all his rushing yards on, okay, play breaks down, easy, I'm just going to go run it. Like that's what you want.
Right.
So.
All right. Well, it's been good talking to you, Edward. We probably will do this again on Sunday because, again, there's only one game to talk about. So if you catch us in time, you're always feel free to call us back. Other than that, I think we're just going to go ahead and wrap it here. I mean, there's only 3 people watching. We're approaching the 3-hour mark. But
don't miss Sunday's show, guys. It's going to be our coaching carousel live stream. We're going to talk about all the moves from Luke Fickell to Wisconsin, Scott Satterfield betraying us to Cincinnati. I'm sorry.
On the bright side, you got Jeff Brom.
Well, and we are going to
Jeff Brom.
And we are going to
Brom
recap this game too, just because
Connor Johnson, fellas, if you do these next week, I'll call in prep to talk Florida,
I mean-
Oregon State.
Connor, you might want to watch out. That bowl game may not even happen. Florida's been in talks to just cancel it because of how many players have gone in the transfer portal.
Wow.
I know they came out today and said
Yeah.
Jack Miller the third's going to start, but they've legit lost almost their entire starting defense and a lot of their two deep. Like they're at a very bad spot right now.
All
Whole
7
wins Saturday.
Yeah.
He's gonna get
But we will be back.
smacked around in the Big 12 pretty soon.
But
But
yeah,
yeah,
we will be
everybody-
back Sunday night. Army, Navy, and all the coaching moves. Make sure you join us. Like,
Thanks for
subscribe.
being here, everybody.
We'll
Have a
catch
good night, everyone.